That is beautiful.
All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the February 12th, 2018 Board of Selectmen meeting. Before we get going, if we could all stand for our invocation and pledge of allegiance.
Almighty God, we come before you, acknowledging your sovereignty over all things. We thank you for your presence. We also thank you for the blessings in our community. Father, as we consider the task of governance within our community, we ask you to guide our thoughts and hearts. And Lord, we ask that you will grant to each of us wisdom, discernment, and understanding. We thank you, Lord, for all you do, and we pray to you in the way we're taught. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. So thank you for everybody out there who might be joining us on TV. We do not have anybody in the audience tonight, so we're pretty much going to go down, our agenda line item by line item. So we're going to start.
Yay.
Yeah, right. Let's start with the minutes of January 22nd. Does anybody have any issues, comments about those minutes for the 22nd? Anybody?
I don't have any message.
All right, we are a motion to accept.
Motion to approve as presented. Second.
Okay, motion is second. Any further discussion on the minutes? No? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Okay, so this is...
So nomination papers. So for those who are looking to get involved with the town on a board, whether it be appointed or through election, please look at all the postings. We'd love to have everybody that is willing to participate, in our town government in different boards as well. Nomination papers are available from February 1st through March 26th. If you are interested, I would recommend pulling papers earlier than later, just so you know what the expectations are and what you need to do. Okay. Moving on. So we got mass opioid litigation. Mike, you want to bring us up to speed on this one?
Yeah, this was our PK Law is getting involved in this project with all they're asking all their clients if they want to get involved with them. They're going to work. This is similar to a situation when they had the cigarette lawsuit nationwide. So as they went after the tobacco companies, now they're going after the opioid, big pharma that makes opioid, OxyContin and that kind of stuff. And there's no cost to the town. And I don't know how much you've read of it. It's a mass tort litigation, not a class action. So they have to they either have to achieve a settlement or go to court and get a verdict. And there'll be damages involved. The damages will be shared with all the communities that are members of the action. But unlike a class action suit, everybody is assumed to have the same damages. This is not the case in a mass tort litigation. You will only be reimbursed for the amount that you've actually spent involved in reacting to the opioid problem in your specific community. So the PK law does need a sign off by the board to represent this town in that legal action.
Mr. Chairman, have we quantified what it's cost us so far in terms of this? Have we talked to the police chief and fire chief for responding and Narcan and everything else that we've had to use?
No, we have not. That'll be done way down the road. And it will be ongoing too, so we don't know what the total cost is. This will be, probably a multi-year litigation.
Do we know of any other towns around us that might be participating?
All I know is that PK Law was asking all of their clients if they wanted to participate.
Is there a downside to not participating? Do we have a risk?
I don't, according to our lead attorney, Tom McEnany, no, there's no risk.
I wouldn't imagine it
Just-
would be.
Just upside.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions, from the board on this? Okay. All right. Do I have a motion?
So, Mr. Chair, I would move that the Board of Selectmen engage KP Law to represent the town of Georgetown in the Massachusetts opioid litigation.
Okay, we got a motion. Do we have a second? No one wants a second?
I need more time.
Get my feelings too.
Yep.
Is there a time limit?
Not that I'm aware of.
To me, I mean, we are suing big,
Yeah.
small little Georgetown, 7,000, 8,000 residents. We're suing Big Pharma. You realize that, right?
Oh, we enjoin ourselves to a class action.
No, it's not a class action, right? It's not a class
Well,
action.
Just Georgetown against Big Pharma? No, this was
With a bunch of other
with
towns.
a
I
bunch
get
of
it.
other towns, all right.
And this
There's no cost to us.
this is national. It's not just Massachusetts.
Right.
Well, you
This
have
is West Virginia. There's a whole bunch of attorneys from all over the country.
The time that
Okay.
they spend, is it pro bono then? Is that what we're saying?
They get 25%. That's in the.
They only get what if they're successful,
Mm-hmm.
and they
Don't cost us.
it would cost us 25%
Of
of
that.
what we get awarded.
No.
It says right here, clients shall not be required to reimburse the firm or the attorneys for litigation expenses of any kind or nature if there is no recovery. The fees, expenses combined will not exceed 50% of the gross recovery of the town.
If I may, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
We
Very
don't
good.
really have a motion at this point. We've got a motion and no second. But
Yep.
yeah,
Well, can we
you know,
second
I'm-
it for
I'm-
discussion?
I'm not, well, we can still, I think we can still have the discussion without,
All right.
because it is in front of us, but, I would like more information, and I'm not one to just jump on a lawsuit just because. I think I'd like to perhaps hear more if from perhaps parties involved in Georgetown that might say, hey, we not really, what we spent isn't significant, or is what it costing this town at this point, is there significance to it? Otherwise, if it's not a significant cost to the town at this point, then it's, I'm lost for the word, but I mean, it's sort of like,
We open up for a countersuit too, and reverting back. I don't know.
I guess
I mean,
possibly, I mean,
I don't know.
a nuisance, I guess I'm saying, would it be perhaps considered a nuisance?
What do they call that?
If it's not significant what the town has spent out there.
Fictitious litigation or something like that.
I would imagine the obvious expenditures would be among the first responders, like you mentioned, David, the Narcan, then the training that's
Well, it could-
involved, the man-hours, all that.
It
So
could be medical, it
significant,
could
yeah.
be medical things that we're not aware of,
Right.
like
You know, the cost of the ambulance.
employees in town, and that we've had to spend
Mhm.
also in health insurance or something, but I think, but not knowing whether it's had that type of an impact on us, and, you know, perhaps KP would like to come before us and tell us their side of it.
Well, that's a
But,
good idea.
you know, I just, like I say, the nuisance was, I don't wanna see it as a nuisance lawsuit either, if it's not had a significant impact on the town.
Yeah, from both chiefs would be great too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I could, Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think, at least for me, not voting this right now is any reflection of there not being a problem with opioid addiction. I think the town is doing a great job to combat it, and I think, Doug, the CARES group that you're part of as well, you know, we get help from Healthy Farms, and, you know, I think from a town standpoint, I think we're doing all that we can do for, you know, to help the cause, but, I just don't want the reflection to be that we don't think it's a problem if we wouldn't vote for this today.
Well, if I'm right, we can vote to, at any time, to ask KP to represent Georgetown, is that right? Or is there a time limit on,
Well-
the other question I have is, has the Attorney General weighed in on it? Because for some
No,
reason.
this has nothing to do with the state. This is just the municipalities. The state would have their own litigation against
Okay.
pharma. I'll find out. I mean, I got a call expressly from our lead attorney asking if this was on tonight's agenda. So there is some sense of urgency. But he didn't, I said, it's on the agenda tonight. He says, oh, okay. So he didn't give me a deadline, but he's following up on whether or not we're signing on.
I'll be honest, I don't know if I want to invite KP in here, you know, just to kind of go, I mean, that costs us money, you know, I don't.
No, they wouldn't charge us for coming out.
Coming in
to
and talking
explain
about
this.
that? Okay, all right, as long as they can charge us for that, because I wouldn't want to go down that road. Is that what we want to do then?
And the two chiefs too, I'd like to hear from
Just get
both
more
our chiefs.
information, yeah.
Okay. All right, so since we do not have a motion in which was seconded, so we don't have anything on the table. So with that being said.
I'll withdraw my motion, Mr. Chair.
Okay. With that being said, Mike, if you can follow up on that and see if those folks want to come in and talk
I'm
to.
here on the
the
26th.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Street acceptance. So I don't know if anybody got a chance to look at this. We have a letter from Peter, basically outlining all the streets, and is it he's just looking for us to accept, you know, all these, or I mean,
To put it on the warrant.
I do,
yeah.
yeah.
Just
Yeah, for the
to
warrant.
move to refer it back to the planning board.
Yes.
Refer back to the planning board. Okay.
To be referred back to the planning board, and then they'll hold hearings and review, and then it'll come back.
Okay. Steve, you have.
Yeah, I thought that they were asking us to put it on the warrant as part of street acceptance. So in order for an unaccepted street to become an accepted street, it has to go through the town meeting. I thought that that's what they were asking, but I just need to,
Kind of was with you on that. I thought that's what they were.
yeah, I
asking,
just
so-
need to disclose here that I've had conversations with the planning board prior to being a selectman in terms of, you know, street plowing on private roads where I live. You know, if we were to quantify it, I think our development spends about $14,000 a year,
18 to 20.
18 to 20. That's how much I know. So that's probably about $500 a year for myself. So that's what we're talking about in terms of what this means to me. I mean, it's not that significant, but so
I don't see
I-
your streets on there.
right. Well, it isn't on there for acceptance.
Right.
So the only issue I have with this here is the designations of what's an unaccepted road. And unaccepted road is defined here as it's a private road, but it's open to the public. There's another designation that's identified as a private road, and that's a private road that's not open to the public. And I can tell you the Little Hill development is identified as a private road that's not open to the public, and we know that that's not the case, that it is open to the public. We have conservation areas, we have public parking spaces. So I just have a problem with how things are designated, and I don't think we've taken enough time to look at how these roads are designated. Also, it seems a little arbitrary on how these were selected to become public. You know, it's an entire list of streets that have a certain designation, or they might be X'd out and they have a new designation. I just think we need to put a little bit more thought into how this works, and I think to be fair to the entire community, because I think right now we have streets that are plowed that are not accepted in our private roads, and we're not getting Chapter 90 funds for these roads. So I think we need to just do a little bit more due diligence and figure out, you know, what's the right classification for these roads, and how do we determine whether they be accepted or not.
Mr. Chairman, I have some comments on this too. It's the process that bothers me. Have watched the meeting, and when board members say, well, that road's in tough shape, put that one on the list too. So the thinking is, so let's put a road that's in bad shape on the list because it's in bad shape, but yet we've got roads that are built to town standards that are passable by the public that won't be on there. So to me, that's backwards thinking. Why are we putting I know Chaplain Hills is a very good, very nice road. I can look at them. I'm sure Martel Way is also. The other ones, Longview Way is another one. But to hear, well, let's put that one on the list because I've been down that road and it's really shabby.
What
And
meeting
yet
was
we
that,
won't.
can I ask?
I can't remember the name.
Okay.
If you go, I have the video because Steve sent
Yeah, it
me
was
the
a
video.
planning board.
And I'm
meeting.
like, are you kidding me? Now we're accepting roads because they're shabby, but yet we got beautiful roads that look brand new, and we won't accept those. It just doesn't make sense to me. Either we're plowing, accepting all of the roads in town, and not doing private ones. It's either all or nothing for me. So I don't want to give up the money on these, but I mean, if you can tell me that is Lynn Circle a well paved and built to town specifications, or is it a dirt road? You guys, Gary, you know every street in the town. Lynn Circle, where is that?
That's off of Lake Shores, I believe.
Is it a paved? Is it a dirt road? What is
No,
it?
it's paved.
It's paved. Does it
Yeah.
have curbing? Does it have sidewalks?
I don't.
Does it have hydrants?
I don't think it's
Street lights? To me,
Well, that's really up to our highway surveyor to do that. I mean, I don't go down the street saying, oh, do they have a sidewalk, or do they have street lights?
no, I don't mean to put it on you. I'm just asking if you guys knew. But so for me to listen to a meeting and people say, well, put that one on the list because that one's really bad, really just makes me shake my head and say, well, let's accept the bad ones, but the real good ones, we won't take those because of an initial permit and other issues. I've had my discussions with, and I'll make it public, but had some discussions, with one of the planning board members about it and my displeasure of all of the process. But I don't want to give up the money, but it's either all or nothing. We're plowing private roads now. They're not accepted, and we're not getting a dime for them. But yet we won't take ones where they're beautiful roads and the collective tax base of that development is probably well in excess of $400,000 a year. Doesn't make sense to me.
Some private roads have covenants on them and have in our used the words perpetual private road. So I know there's an issue in your neighborhood. I don't know that these streets have covenants on them. I don't know if they have right-of-ways so the public can get to those conservation areas and that soccer field and all of that, okay? So we're not dealing with apples and oranges. When we deal with communities like, I think Jefferson Court is a private road to remain private. So I think there are, I don't know what they are. And so I think we're talking apples and oranges. Chaplain Hill has been around.
Yeah, I know of that
And all that
situation.
stuff.
Yeah, that-
Yeah, so that's what I'm just saying, just so we have to really consider the various circumstances on each roads, on the roads that we're talking about. You know?
Let's get the designations correct, that's what my problem is too, I mean,
There was a list with this.
I'm sorry?
There was a list with this.
Yeah, I mean, I could tell you that the Little Sill development is open to the public, it's listed as
By
a private road.
right of way,
I'm sorry?
by right of way to the conservation areas and athletic facility. It's not for anybody just to drive around through the neighborhood unless they're looking for a house.
It's a public way, I don't know how else to define a public way.
Yeah, I think as
think
residents
it's-
there, we're getting a little too deep. We shouldn't even be really discussing much.
No,
of
that's
this.
fine, yeah.
I'm just saying. I said good roads. I didn't say where. That won't be accepted. You
But
know.
Steve brought up.
I see.
your
Yeah.
neighborhood,
No, I
you
see.
know?
No, and I
You
only-
have had conversations about.
And I
this.
only brought that up because I just want to make sure,
Yeah.
yeah, well, for disclosure, and also I just want to make sure that we have taken the time to identify what these roads are. Are they unaccepted? Are they private or not? I just pulled that example because I know that it would probably be unaccepted as opposed to private.
I would
but-
bet most of these had bonds on them
Yeah.
that the developer had to build them to town specifications. Like Chapel Hills, I know that for a fact because the gentleman passed away, the developer, and then the town went in, finished the roads, and we're finally now getting to accept them. This has been about a 3 or 4 year process, at least, right, Mike? At least. So in that case, yes, that's legit. I'm not, again, I'm not familiar with some of them. That's why I say wish I had, Peter was here to explain that, hey, these are all paved roads with, they're not dirt roads that we've been plowing, that, the former highway surveyor made an agreement with somebody to plow their road, and it's been like that forever. That's not fair. Either we accept them all or we don't, we don't. And that's costing the town a lot of money.
Then do we direct the highway surveyor and the planning board to go through their list and write a,
We used to, at the beginning of each winter, he'd come before us and asking permission
Right.
to do certain roads. That stopped
You're right, Gary.
several
You're right.
years back. I
Yep.
never quite understood why it was there, and then it went away.
right, so.
So Mike has a comment.
Yeah, I just want to comment on the revenue. It's really minuscule, so it's going to be I wouldn't even use that into your calculations. Peter and I calculated it a couple years ago, and I don't want to say a number without double checking, but it is minuscule per mile.
The reimbursement, you mean?
Yeah.
Even more so now. You get me even going even further. But anyway.
Gary, go ahead.
I think I don't want to say I know the procedure, but from what I'm reading here, okay, we are in a way jumping over the procedure, because the way I read this, the only one with the exception of Mohawk Circle, which is being requested for acceptance by the planning board only. That's the way it reads. So I take it that we're gonna have something on the town warrant for Mohawk Circle. To follow up on what you've said, without Peter being here, I don't quite understand why, because typically this stuff does, in the way I'm reading this letter, typically this stuff comes from the planning board. What he's asking us is to ask the planning board to look at these.
Right.
And that's the way, and for us to forward it. And I don't know that we would have enough time for them to look at any of these and make a determination before May 7th for our warrant. But we're sort of jumping over the process, although others, as you said, I think, you know, we go through to make sure that the roads that the planning board, what developments that come in front of them, but some of these, as you said, some of them have, because of other obstacles that have been there, gotten passed. So to me, all I'm reading here is just a simple letter to the planning board, hey, would you look at these? It may be on cost. When I first came on the board, I did take a ride around with Peter to see some of the streets. I think he may be at odds also as to what he can do on some of these streets. He can possibly plow Chaplain Hills Road, but I don't know that he can put down any pavement or fill any potholes or anything of that sort.
On that one, I
unless
think-
it was a real emergency.
No, I think that
perhaps.
one we're accepting the whole road. That was part of the deal when, again.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like I say, the way I'm reading it, that this isn't being forwarded, remember, this isn't being forwarded by the planning board. This is Peter asking us to ask
Well, in
the
the
planning
middle,
board to take a look at that.
in the middle of this letter,
No.
in the middle of the letter, it says, well, they're talking about looking at these roads or streets. And then reading in the middle, it says, that is, the Board of Selectmen must request the planning board to investigate the status of such ways and advise the
Yeah.
Board of Selectmen in writing as to each street's status of acceptability or lack thereof.
Well, yeah, that's all I'm reading, that he's
Yeah,
asking us.
so I mean, maybe we need to direct the planning board.
Yeah, I think we need to ask them, if I could, Mr. Chair, to, you know, what are what is the criteria for the determination? And I think if we have a concrete way to determine this, and we apply it across the board, whether it impacts me or not, I really don't care. But, you know, if, I think, about Hawks Circle, I think it was mentioned at that planning board meeting that was the worst road in town, and that ended up getting on the list. That doesn't sound like a process that's being followed on how it's determined to become
Well,
accepted or
it-
not. And that's all that I'm asking for,
It
is
may be,
review the designations. Is it private? Is it unaccepted? Is it accepted? Review those, and then also review the process or the criteria that you need to go through to determine whether it could go. If it's covenants, completely agree with you. If you need to overturn covenants, then that might not be the one that you select. But if you go through a process and the criteria is there for people to see, I think that's what we need to request the planning board.
at one point, we used to sort of have
Sidewalks, no
agents to
streetlights.
the different boards. I don't think we've gone down that road in several years. You know, we may want someone on this board to go to a planning board meeting or sit down with Peter and say, just what are we looking for here? What is the process? I mean, we could get them to come in, but it might be also easier if one of us just went there and said, hey, here's what we got.
I think Mike could forward our request to Highway Survey and Planning Board.
Go on, Mike.
Well, it appears the process was circumvented. Peter should have come to the selectmen first. And that's essentially what the planning board's saying. They listened to him, but they said, fine and dandy, but,
So I
you
guess
gotta go to
that's-
it's gotta come from the selectmen first. He should have come to us.
Yeah.
And just the FYI, Peter's not recommending Mohawk Circle. Accepted.
Oh, so with the,
Yeah, he made an exception on that.
First
Last,
page and
last sentence.
right before the list.
so I'm reading this wrong. The way I'm reading this is, I'm reading it that it looked like the planning board was moving that one forward.
Planning board
He-
was
They
Peter.
might, but
He's
Peter,
saying at this point, just
Yeah.
cross it off.
well, Peter's not recommending it, the planning board might be.
Oh,
Apparently, the planning board's reviewing that one.
So would the board want Peter to come and sit down with us first before we do anything with this? So I think that's what the planning board is asking us, is do we want to accept, do we want to talk to Peter first before we do anything with this?
Well, I think that we should have a process, and we do have a process, and that process should be followed.
Okay. All right. Everybody agree?
I agree.
All right, so why don't we Can we ask Peter to come in, Mike, and talk to the board about that before we vote any? All right, so next one, street acceptance request for the Turning Leaf subdivision.
Are they requesting that to go on the spring warrant? There, okay.
It's asking
But
it
it's
to be
a-
referred.
Yeah, it's the same,
Right.
they're asking you to refer it to the planning board.
Oh, yeah.
Jill, man.
Is that all done? The whole subdivision?
I believe so.
This seems to me like the first time it's ever been done this way.
Yeah, it's coming from the
It-
attorney.
Yeah, it seems to me that this is typically, the planning board comes to us and says, street's ready for acceptance, would you put it on a warrant? We've had all our hearings on it. Now we've got something from an attorney asking us to refer back to them, sort of like Peter, so I'm
Oh, we
not sure
have a
that that's
process,
following
yeah.
a process.
No.
But maybe that is the process and we've just been missing it all these years.
A lot of times the attorneys or the developers are gone. And that is, so usually the planning board is initiating it because they've finished the roads, like you said, Chaplain Hills, there's no one there to, there's no developer anymore, so that the town and, the planning board would initiate, sending it to the board of selectmen, and then we refer it back to them. Now it's the attorney is referring it to us, the selectmen, and you refer it back to the planning board, and then they will,
Yeah.
that doesn't mean they have to hold the hearings, they have to make sure that all the drainage and whatever, they require is done, and then it comes back to the
I
selectmen.
just never remember this process.
Yeah, it's always that the selectmen refer it back, but I don't know if it matters who has referred it, the attorney or the developer. A lot of times it's the developer working with the planning board. They always work together, usually, for
Yeah,
it.
they haven't even had their inspection by Dave Varga yet, it says right in the letter. Once he completes his inspection and confirms.
But they have to have the public hearing, and
Yeah,
but they don't do that until it comes back from the selectmen, referring it back to them
Right,
to move the process forward.
so maybe we should just refer this back to planning board. Okay.
Do we need a motion to do that?
Yes.
So I would move that we, the Board of Selectmen, move the request for the Turning Leaf extension, the Turning Leaf development to be turned over to the planning board for further investigation.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Any further discussion regarding that?
Yes.
Gary?
Could we perhaps get something on this, on procedure, if there's anything that we've got something to look at?
Do we have an SOP on
Well, that's the question I'm asking. Do we have a,
No.
We do the planning board, and maybe.
if the planning board has one, that would be acceptable, but and/or do we need something to move forward? Do we
Yeah.
need to make one?
it? Yeah, make it consistent.
Yeah,
I agree,
I'll
yeah.
talk to John Cashel about this.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on the motion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Nay? Anybody? No? Okay. All right. See, contract operations discussion. Mike, is this what we were talking about?
Yeah,
The water
I
side?
can, I did have a brief discussion with Jim Lavecchia, the water department manager this morning. He just informed me that the board of water commissioners put an RFP out, and they're due back Friday for firms to offer management, contract management of the water department. And ostensibly during this interim period, Jim's leaving March 2nd, so they need somebody to run the day-to-day operations.
Right.
But that's not the same as contract ops. They're just managing the department, they're not operating the department. Those are two different things.
Right.
And, matter of fact, one of the firms, the firm that I contacted, I spoke to them last Friday and they said they couldn't be here until the 26th, is a contract ops firm and they were contacted by the water commissioners to submit a management bid.
So this was this was something that first it was a great recommendation by Mike on this. When we had full knowledge that the light department and the water department had gotten together, and Mike and I discussed his past experience. Mike, maybe you could talk about that past experience when you had that firm go in. I forgot where it was, but you had a good experience with that, right?
Yeah, and communities do it all the time, but my personal experience was the town I was managing had their own wastewater treatment plant. Small town, population 4,000. And we weren't operating it very well. The highway department manager was the wastewater treatment manager as well. And it just wasn't working out. We were getting penalties from the EPA, violating dumping sewage in the river and things like that. And so we just put the operations of the plant, the management and operations of the plant out to bid. And these firms, they're mostly engineering firms that do contract ops. The firm that I talked to that said they'd come here, the 26 is Woodard and Curran. They're they're at least a regional firm on the East Coast or the Northeast Coast. And there's a lot of other, Wright Pierce, other engineering firms as well that offer this service.
Mr. Chair, if I might.
Yeah, go ahead, Doug. Why don't you start?
At the joint meeting of the electric and water department, they did have a company there that does just what you're saying. And that company also works over in Raleigh and all that. And so that's now we know of two different companies. But they would, if I remember correctly, they would go in and they would also provide training to employees if they needed the training to to
Well,
run.
they can provide the employees as well.
Right. Well, yeah, well, they could, but, I mean, we have, well, it doesn't matter, I'm just saying that it sounds like a pretty good idea, because for some reason, we can't keep water superintendents.
No, and in my experience, we set up a performance contract where we had benchmarks where they saved money. The town shared that savings with the contract operator as well. And after the second year of operation, we received an award from the EPA for the cleanest plant in northern New Hampshire, northern New England. After 2 years.
So, so that is something that you'll go with, Steve. I know you had a comment.
Thanks. Yeah, I think that's a great idea in the interim, right? Just to provide some stability and get things back on track.
Right.
Has, I think, bigger picture. I know the light department has had conversations with water department about a possible merger there. Have we thought about, or have we had discussions with DPW? I know there's a lot of overlap in what Peter's group does for the water department. They have the same type of equipment when they need to dig, so it seems like that might be a possible area to explore if we're thinking about consolidating, in the long term.
Yeah, I in my conversation with one of the commissioners, the water commissioners, I said, I actually suggested that. Why wouldn't you include, have a public works department? And because you're right, there's a lot. Oftentimes when there's a water break, our highway guys are in the trench with the water guys, and they're using our equipment or we're using theirs. There's a lot of overlap.
Well, it's like mutual aid.
And the only main issue is they're a separate account. They're not a general fund account, but that's just on paper. Yeah, we can track the money on paper. We
And I
can't
think-
mix the two, but
Yeah, I think to your earlier point, if these consulting companies, if they have the ability to enable employees, and provide some training, maybe the town gets a plan together that says, you know, not only in the interim are we going to use them to manage this, but we're also gonna get our future department up to speed. And I think that would take away a whole lot of risk that you mentioned, you know, just handing it off to someone who doesn't really have a lot of experience with it. So, but I think that's a good idea. Yeah.
I think the discussions are healthy. However, have we seen any type of analysis, have we seen a SWOT analysis on this merger? What strengths it brings, what are the threats? Have we seen anything, or is it just, again, I haven't been part of the discussion, but how far have they really taken this, and how, what are the benefits to the people of the town? What are the potential threats? What's the, again, are they gonna make that presentation to us? Because this can't happen unless we put it on the warrant, right?
that's correct. And they're meeting on the 26th, and then they were going to, based on that meeting between the two water and light departments, then they would come to the selectmen.
If I may, I mean, at the meeting that I attended, they're not there yet.
Right.
They've not voted. The basic thing that I remember them voting was to ask us to put in a placeholder in case this goes through. But many of the questions that you just asked were asked.
Right.
One of the guys on light department, he said, "I'm not the kilowatt guy. He's the finance guy."
Right.
And he asked the questions that you just
Yeah.
asked.
Yeah,
I mean, and he says, "I want to see, does this work?" I mean, I myself asked the question many times, what happens, yes, you have one manager, now obviously that manager's gonna want more funds, he's now managing two. But on the other hand, he's gonna need, someone's gonna have to pick up that load.
Right.
So, it always can get presented as a savings, but it doesn't always, to me, end up there.
Right.
I'm
I'm not just about the savings, I'm more worried about the
I
operations.
think they're hoping to, well, I think one of the readout that I got was the water department, it realizes they've been having trouble. They talked highly of the electric light department, and it seemed like they were feeling that perhaps there's some of their procedure that they could learn to have a better water department if the two merged. That was kind of what I was getting out as the biggest, I kind of thought that was the biggest push. They said the electric light department really had much more respect in town than
Right.
how they felt their department. And they realized, the problem, I guess, managerial. And right at this point, it seemed like they were perhaps looking to what Mike and Doug spoke about, perhaps instead of hiring a manager right now, they hire somebody on the interim to come in. So all of that was discussed, and I think it's gonna be further discussed. And, we're open to go and sit in on those meetings if we want. But then they were gonna, hopefully, if they have something to present, I think, come back to us.
But
If not-
did they discuss a kind of a hierarchy in if that was ever kind
Well,
of?
there was a lot discussed, like now what do you do, because you've got two separate boards, you got a board of water commissioners and a board of light commissioners, you would perhaps have to have something there on electing a board, now you would perhaps, now would you have a 6-member board, a 5-member board, or would you expand it? I mean, I don't think expansion came up, it came up more as moving down to a combined board, so there's a lot that they wanna go over themselves before they bring it here.
I might
Well,
edit-
there is a placeholder in this warrant right now.
Yes,
Tonight.
yes, that's like I say, that's all that, I thought that they were sending a letter here saying, asking for a placeholder.
Well, it's more than a placeholder. It is the legislation.
So they had something written up, yes, because it's gotta
They
go.
have to go to the
I
legislature.
think, yeah, because part of the warrant article is that it's gotta go to the
Matter of
state.
fact,
We can't just do it.
Darren Klein represents the Water Commission. He wrote the verbiage for the warrant article and the legislation that appears in.
Yeah, and I think they had
Yeah.
that, I think they had that at their last meeting too, if I remember.
Well,
correctly. I didn't see it, but.
Actually, what happened was the light department's attorney also edited it. So
Yeah,
they've
okay.
had both sides look at it. It's still not a final document.
Does it seem a bit presumptuous, I think, on either the water or the light department's staff? I mean, we haven't even talked to them. Can we have a placeholder,
Well,
quote unquote, inside of a Walnut?
in fairness, they're just trying to get their ducks in a row. They haven't, there's been no decision made whether they're going to do it or not. I think maybe.
I just heard that attorneys were going through this.
Let me
and were
finish.
doing it.
Let me finish this.
Yeah.
They, at that meeting, they agreed, because it was their first meeting, joint meeting about this. They agreed that they will go out and do their due diligence between then and their next meeting, which I guess is the 26th, all right? So they had all these questions that have been asked here and more. And so they're working on getting all those answers and making a decision whether they really want to do that. But they wanted to have, in case they did, they wanted to have legislation, or at least verbiage ready to go to the legislature, because the legislature has to approve that, just like when this board got expanded, right, to 5. So I don't know that there's been a decision made. I would say it's leaning that way, but personally.
I just hope they're not working
go
to
carry it
the timeframe for town meeting. I hope
Yeah,
that they
I
are-
don't know
I
that.
asked-
That
I
was-
That's,
that
they
question, I
hope
were
not.
just doing it, they knew the warrant closed on the 26th, so that's all they're doing is trying to, do it in a timely, official manner.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
I think this is a huge
I mean,
undertaking.
Yeah.
It's gonna take more than 5 or 6 meetings for them to put
Right.
together.
They could very well pull that
Right.
warrant if they weren't there for it to be ready for the town.
They felt they could. Some on the water department, I remember one, and he really felt that, because those questions got asked,
Yeah.
and they felt that, yes, if they so choose, they felt that it could be done in that time.
That time
frame.
frame.
Well, in the meantime, though, again, we need to kind of open our minds to those consultants coming in. That is, it's very much a viable option. And, so with that said, it's certainly not a decision, we need, number one, to take lightly or rush, number two. I mean, if we have to, put it off, we have to put it off.
I think
mean,
they
that's-
should definitely
that
be
is-
talking with Peter.
Yeah, I just think
Do
it's,
it all- Yeah, Peter directly about
I think
it.
that's
Let's put it
just
all
a
together.
lot for those two boards, to
Yeah,
come
I
together,
could see
and a
some
lot of
pushback.
responsibility.
Right.
A lot of two funds and the whole thing. I don't know, it makes me a little uncomfortable. But anyway, I'd like to move on, guys. If there are any other, comments, questions, Mike, we okay?
Yep.
Okay. Purchase and sale, Matt, 11, lot 11. Again, Mike, I'll kind of throw this to you.
Yeah, this is from Conservation. They've gone before the CPC asking for funding to purchase this land. It's a 10-acre parcel, at least 10 acres. And in order to be finally, they were given not pre-approval, what's the term that you guys use? They had a favorable vote on this project, but in order for them to consider, for the CPC to consider it, there has to be a purchase and sale agreement in hand.
Yeah,
Is that right, Gary?
Yeah, I don't think we've moved any of these things forward to town meeting without having
No.
purchase and sales
Right.
in hand, and so that's what we are looking for. I don't think there was there may have been a vote to move it forward to this point. I think that may have been the vote to,
Well, Steve's letter said they've received favorable comments from the CPC.
So no
it's just,
vote.
well, it's just like.
Yeah, there's no vote yet.
You know, we voted to move forward the placeholders, and this is one of them, you know. This, a couple we're taking off of what comes in front of us. This one's not been taking off, but it hasn't been approved either. But I think it was more, as he said, it's a suggestion that, you know, we wouldn't move it forward if you don't have a purchase and sales agreement.
So the selectmen have to authorize a purchase and sale.
It's a review by legal.
10 acres for 28,125.
And there is, you know, there's, if you turn to page, I think it's on page 5, I think it's, yeah.
There's, looks like with a copy to Jonathan Eichman, in case you know.
It's been reviewed by legal counsel?
Yeah, Eichmann wrote the P and S.
Oh, he did, okay.
Yeah.
And it's strictly for open space. That's
That's the designation.
the designation. Yeah.
Like I say, on page 5, it says, you know, if it doesn't get town meeting vote, then,
Yeah, it's contingent upon it.
yeah, so those contingencies are in there.
And 10 acres for that seems like a light.
Well, it's not usable for anything else.
Well, I know, but still, all right.
So I think, what is it that they're looking for? Just for somebody on this board, or for Mike to be able to sign off on the purchase and sales?
Well, that's what it said in the, Mike, are you signing off on this? Is that what we're voting?
There's a signature page for selectmen. Yeah,
Oh, there is? Okay.
yeah.
Because I just saw the opening remarks on the front page.
No, it has the selectmen.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we authorize the chairman of the board to sign a purchase and sale for lot, for purchase and sale as
Excuse me,
presented for map 11.
You need a,
Entire board?
yeah.
Alright, so the entire board of selectmen to sign a purchase and sale for map 11, lot 11 as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 You want us to sign this?
Mr. Chairman, while we're on CPC discussion,
Yes,
can
sir.
I bring up a request? We, meaning myself, Jeff Moore, and Scott McDonald have gone in front of CPC for some money to kind of figure out the study to figure out the fields that we've had, you know, multiple discussions on. Meaning, you know, specifically West Street, you know, doing an inventory of all the fields. Taking a look at the West Street property, the Upper High School, and any other lots in town. I think we have a preliminary favorable, you know, read from CPC, but what I got back was, there needs to be a formal committee before we can, a formal committee charged by the Board of Selectmen before we can consider the request.
Yep.
So, I'd like to ask if we could create a field study committee, and initially put me, Jeff, and Scott McDonald on it, make it a board of maybe 5, and then we'll have 2 open spots, but at least we can meet.
Yep.
And then the CPC would be able to really consider the request. So,
Okay.
that would be the suggestion. I mean, that's the will and pleasure of the board, but we can't really proceed with CPC funds until we have an actual board with a
Yep.
designed goal in mind, which is to evaluate all the playing fields in town.
Yep. Well, which we had discussed, a while ago,
Multiple times,
right?
yeah.
And, in the board, was certainly at that time, in favor of looking, at all the suggestions, as we kind of move forward for other alternatives, for, those fields and everything.
We are gonna
So-
gather all the other studies that have been done too, to take a look at those, to see what information we can gather from that, and then utilize that firm, one of the firm, I think it was the firm that did the last one, to go out and, with all that data and all, any old data that we have, take a look and inventory everything and see what the best solution is to possibly remove ourselves from the West Street fields.
If I might ask, how much money was asked?
I think it was 25,000, I think, was
I
it?
was gonna say, it was like 20.
I don't think you were there the night. You weren't at
25,
that.
26, 27.
Yeah, it's
For some reason, I thought it was 28.
It's like 25 to 30 grand in money. But we are gonna look at all of the other studies first.
Yeah.
Also,
I
because
thought it
Harry
might,
mentioned it.
I got a lengthy package from it that I still got.
Yeah, I think Karen was there.
Was you there that night when we were
Pretty sure
across next, second floor? I'm not so sure.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you meant the meeting up here. When we
The
started
CPC meeting.
talking.
No,
Oh,
I was
CPC.
here and I would believe I was at CPC.
Well, you were there, okay, I'm sorry, Gary, I couldn't remember, but,
Okay. David, any, are there any thoughts to who those other members are?
well, yeah, it'd be Scott McDonald
Yeah, Scott,
and
Yourself,
Jeff, myself.
Jeff, and then you
we'd
said
have-
two
I would
others.
make it a board of 5, so we'd have 2 more open spots for anybody.
I mean, you're gonna get someone from like Concom or
Maybe, yeah,
whatever.
maybe from somebody from Park and Rec would be good too.
Park and Rec, I
You
mean.
know, I mean, I don't know. I mean, at this point, we can open it up, but it'd be us 3 working on it for now. They need, Harry wants us to do some actual research,
Yeah,
which Jeff is working on and Scott are working on right now.
okay, I like it.
So,
I like it. So we wanna have a motion?
Yes, what's the motion? What's the name of the committee?
would be the I call it the Field Study Committee,
Make a
Recreational Field Study Committee, I guess.
Make a motion to create a recreational field study committee, made up of 5 members to expire.
Make it probably June 30th of this year, because if not, if it doesn't go, then
Yeah.
To
it's dead.
expire June 30th, 2018. Do I need to put the committee members in
No,
there?
we'll do those.
Okay.
We'll vote the people afterwards. I'll second that.
We have a motion, can you second it?
Yeah, I can second
That's
it.
on the board.
I can
I'm not,
second
I'm
it
not
if
on
you
there
want.
yet, but yeah, all right, I'll withdraw my second. Let Gary do.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on that?
Yeah, I mean, if I may.
Sure.
I'm always concerned on studies, and just express my concern about this could end up to be quite a capital project without having much in front of us as a town, I think, on capital expenditures going forward. I guess, again, I would echo, how do we intend to move forward on capital?
Yeah, I'd say, look, we need to know what needs to be done first. Then we can sit down and say, all right, this is what it is. We can't afford to move forward. We don't move forward. Maybe we can do smaller projects. Maybe it doesn't have to be all at once. Could be a 10-year plan. Could be a 5-year plan. Could be, hey, do these smaller things and, some small things that we don't know. Until we know, we don't know. And I can tell you, it could cost 100,000. It could cost 10 million. We don't know until the experts tell us. Because we got all these different opinions, right? People saying, oh, we should be up at the high school. Oh, we should be here. Oh, we should. Let's put all that to rest and consolidate everything and say, this is the this is the plan the experts say will serve us best.
This has been on my mind, and the part about capital, and we've moved it forward here, and any question that comes to my mind that I kind of wanted to follow up, and so perhaps you were on the school building
Mhm.
committee. I
Well,
mean,
I'm on it.
how much did we spend up there? Anybody got any ideas on fields that the Mass School Building Authority didn't compensate us because they only do on the school
Well, the fields
project?
were on us. The way
That's what I
understand the
mean.
fields-
So any idea
fields
how
were-
much as a town we
Off the top of
spent
my head, I
up
don't remember.
there on the fields already, and and that's recent.
Oh, we added a field.
That's-
We definitely added a field.
Yeah, I mean, we did a lot up
I
there.
can't remember,
and-
Gary.
But
It's still
it was also involved in the mitigation of the arsenic.
Right. So, Gary, I hear you. Even by adding that field, there was still even much more demand. That was only putting a little dent in it, to be honest, by adding another field, from what I've been told. I don't have kids in any of these programs or anything, but anytime we go by the fields, they're always jammed.
They're always, and that's kind of the problem, is that we're gonna get to a point where, once again, we're overusing, one
It could go the other way too, Joe. It could be where this population thing is. They say, you know what, 10 years from now, you may not need all these fields. That's why we really got to get the analysis.
Right. Well, which is also why, David, the analysis does have to be done because, for example, I've heard from many adults, right? Never mind, for
They're
kids,
gonna get on a softball,
right? An adult, right, that might like a track, right, or might like some other facilities that we don't already have here in Georgetown. So it doesn't all have to be, about the kids. I think a predominant reason is, we're trying to get off of West Street, all right? But, we can't overpopulate the other fields because they're just going to turn into, sand, if they're overused. And we've had, Josh in from the GAA talking about that. We're pushing as hard as we can to open up East Main Street, with the help of Parks and Rec. But, the underlying factor is, we do have, a field, but we can't rely on that field just, as a whole, just for everything. Because it's not going to be a nice field anymore, after that. So, again, this is just an examination. It's all it is. It's an analysis.
It's a
and
costly
examination.
examination, possibly. That's my concern. And,
I don't think we should do any, if I could, Mr. Chair, I don't think that we should do, we should not do any type of planning for the sole reason that we don't have the money, because then we won't get anything done ever.
Well, we're already afraid of the result.
Yeah.
That's kind of,
I'm
we don't
just-
know what the result's going to be. I hear you,
My
Gary.
question was leading towards, do we have any idea how much in the recent past we've already expanded? And it's on the fact that it seems like, we're always pushing our fields to the limit. We've always seemed to be there. We've never, and I mean, I just don't want to see this, I'm sure there's people in town who would like to see a stadium. Or maybe that's where we're going with it. I don't know. I certainly hope not. But,
I think,
But
to your point,
we need to at some point figure something out going forward on capital projects.
I agree.
And if we focus on that first, and then okay, this is how we fund the capital project going forward. Then you go in front and say, okay, these are the capital projects we want. To me, we're doing it backwards.
Well,
I
I
want to
think-
mention funds.
Well, I think this would fall in line with all the other priorities, Gary, to be honest. I mean, if we, again, I don't know what the study is gonna say, and I don't know what the final result's gonna be. But if it's a $2 million expenditure, I think it goes in line with everything else. It goes in line with replacing a ladder truck, it goes in line with whatever other projects we have.
Well, if I
It
might,
gets prioritized, just like anything else, that's all.
we haven't set any priorities
Right.
because the strategic plan hasn't been
We gotta
set
finish.
any priorities. And something like this, resulting, possibility of more fields, should be part of a strategic
It's in there
plan.
too. It
Well,
is
yeah, it
definitely
is,
in
but
there.
it should be so that we have something that here's the plan.
And then
So we just
prioritize.
don't rush willy-nilly into, well, we need this field.
Yeah. No, I agree with you 100%. I think that's part of the reason why we're trying to consolidate all the ideas, because there are people that say, well, just do the second level at high school and we'll
Right.
fix it all. That may not be the right thing to do.
Right.
But again, we can't get to any place unless we have that analysis. So listen, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
The motion was that this board is only going till June 30th
30th
of this year?
This year, yep.
Okay.
And should we include in the motion not to exceed X amount of dollars?
I don't think.
No, that's up to
No.
CPC.
Oh, okay.
But then-
Oh, that's right, it is CPC request.
Okay.
Yes.
Any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Did we?
That was just
Thought
to
you already
establish the committee.
voted.
No.
it was to establish the committee?
Yeah, this was to establish the committee.
Okay, right, okay, you didn't vote, I'm sorry.
Comprised of 5 people.
So again, we had
But we've only got 3 names.
Yeah, we haven't voted.
So,
them
so,
yet.
okay, we have noted the name, we're voting the
We just
board of 5.
established
it.
At
Yeah.
that point.
Yeah, we just
And
established.
it all depends on CPC too.
Right, if they don't.
So
find
we
it,
had-
to solve.
hold on, guys. We had 4. Gary, what was your vote?
I'll go with a reluctant aye, I'll say it.
All right, so
myself.
5-0 on that, Jen. Okay. All right.
Reluctant, I like that.
How do you put that in the minutes? Put it, you know what? Like fade it out. Put it like
Yeah.
everybody else is a little dark. Fade it a little
Yeah,
bit.
use
guess
the, use the invisible ink for that one.
Almost unanimous.
All right, so gentlemen, moving on, regulation of tobacco sales. So This is,
We gotta appoint the,
do we wanna put
three
we gotta
people on it?
appoint, Mr. Chairman, we need to appoint the members. and I
oh, did we
can't-
not do that yet? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
My bad.
Sorry.
And that's why I was getting confused.
Yeah, okay.
Well, shouldn't we ask the members that we're appointing whether they want to be?
They do, I've already talked to them.
All 5 of them?
No, three.
All
There's
three.
only three.
Three of them, right? They want a 5-person.
I'll name the
board.
names and you guys put in a motion. Scott McDonald, Jeff Moore, David Surface.
So I make a motion that we,
Who are the other
we
two?
appoint 3 out of the 5 members.
Right, following
Dave
three.
Service,
Right.
Chris Root,
No,
Scott McDonald.
Scott McDonald,
Jeff Moore.
Jeff Moore.
got Chris Rubio, they could have put the library in there.
Second.
And the other 2 to
To
be
be determined,
determined.
right.
Okay, so we have the motion. Do we have a second?
I second it.
Oh, you second already? Okay, motion is second, further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Aye.
I have to, I can't vote myself on the committee.
All right, so we have 4-0 and an abstention. All right. So now on to regulation of tobacco sales. So we have a lot of heated discussion in town, okay, about what's going in the center of town, and the effects that it could possibly have on our kids that are located in the general vicinity of that business. So we have gotten enough feedback from citizens of Georgetown who are extremely concerned about this. Now, this is coincidental that we had the discussion earlier about the opioid litigation, because there are folks that believe that tobacco and certain kinds of tobacco now kind of lead to that, right? And anytime you hear a mention of that, even if there's the smallest chance, you have to really kind of open your eyes, to the negative effects and how we might be able to help our kids, in making either the right choices, as Doug Board is doing, or giving or taking away, I would say, the ability to purchase such products, okay, to what we still consider kids. So we have actually, I don't know if anybody has read it, but we have the regulation of tobacco sales. Regulations are listed. I would like to see the tobacco age go from 18 to 21. Okay, I feel that 18 is an age where I just feel I was 18 before. I feel like kids don't make the right decisions when it comes to things like this that can really be harmful to their bodies. There are kids that are buying these products because they still think it's cool, or trying to impress people, and they just don't have the underlying facts. And with this, with the new business in town, there's a lot of concern over where that product goes when you talk about the opioid addiction. All right, there's a lot of belief that it can go that way. There's a lot of belief, and the numbers aren't there yet because of the newness of the product, but that product can also cause cancer along with tobacco, right? So when we talk about raising the age from 18 to 21, personally, that's not a huge difference, okay? In terms of, I think, the demographic that is buying, there, I really don't. I just feel like we're doing the best thing for our kids in town, if we increase that age to 21. If you also think about the maturity, and this is kind of what also got me, and it's nothing against 18, 19, or 20-year-olds, but again, I've been there, okay, and I just know that a 21-year-old, as far as where they are in their life, is much different than where an 18-year-old is in their life. I find that 18-year-olds who watch the movie Animal House way too much have a certain thing on their mind, whereas 21-year-olds that are graduating college have another thing on their mind, and it's almost like a light switch goes off, right? So I'd like to have an open discussion about this because I would like to, have it on our warrant as a vote to increase our age from 18 to 21. I think that's, I've heard loud and clear from a majority, not all right, because it's not going to be all, from a majority of people I've spoken with that that's what they want, okay, in town. So I'll open it up to open conversation about that. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, I have a few questions. So, this proposal here, is it to be voted on by the Board of Health, or how does the
Yes.
process?
So, I can answer that, but Mike, why don't you answer it? Because, I know you've had some conversation about it as well.
Yeah, the Board of Health regulates
Yeah.
tobacco in town.
Yep.
And because of the issue with vaping, this is, I wouldn't say novel, but it's a way to combine both. You
That's
know,
fine,
a nicotine delivery system, and that's what they're referring to the vapes as.
No. Yeah, I get that. I guess the question is, in terms of process, does it
What-
have to be voted on?
By the end of the day, tonight, what you would be doing is voting to recommend this to the Board of Health for their consideration.
Okay. And then it would go on to pass it as a bylaw. It would go to town meeting.
No, it doesn't
No.
go to town
Oh, it
meeting.
wouldn't go to town meeting.
If
Okay.
the
It's
Board
a
of
Board of
Health
Health
votes,
regulation.
Okay, I get you, okay.
but if they don't vote it, okay, as a yes, then it can go to town meeting.
I think there's an option available to, if they don't do it, then you may be able to take it to town meeting.
Okay,
yes.
okay. And the other comment I had was, I think it's important for everyone to know that it isn't just the 21. It's our tobacco regulations. Our bylaw hasn't been updated, I think, since the 90s or something, and it's only tobacco. So here we're incorporating this new vaping craze, and that's actually consistent with other communities. They've, defined it. It delivers nicotine that's in tobacco, so I think it's important to note that it isn't just increasing the age to 21, but it's doing an entire revamp of the regulations as the products exist today, so we're trying to keep up to date. I'm fully in support of it. I think, just my personal opinion on it, it's a lot easier, I guess, to get cigarettes or any type of nicotine delivery system from an 18-year-old who could be at the high school than it would be someone who's 21. And I just think it's the right thing to do at this point in time.
Mr. Chairman, so I have a couple of comments. I just want to make sure that this board is not taking a stance that we're singling out one business or one entity in town. Before that business that we're talking about, the vape store, opened, within 200 yards of the vape store is a place that sells cigarettes and alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
So, I look at it like, if we're gonna look at it because it's old and it's antiquated, it doesn't have all the new stuff in it, that's one thing. But let's make sure that we're not singling out one business. Let's just
We might
make
not
absolutely
be.
sure.
We might not be
I think
singling
there's
out,
danger in
right?
that.
But
Oh, we are.
But at the same time, vaping has there is a tremendous amount of concern, David,
I agree.
from parents in town about the difference between vaping and cigarettes. Okay, and the vaping part, okay, unlike cigarettes, okay, where there has been study and information out there that vaping does lead to opioid usage.
I mean,
Okay.
so doesn't alcohol, so doesn't a bunch of stuff.
But cigarettes have.
I'm
it.
not debating that
Okay.
fact with you, Joe. All I'm saying is let's not pick on one business.
We're not.
That's
We're,
dangerous
maybe we're picking out
legislation.
Maybe we're picking out an industry. Okay,
Perfect.
we're picking an industry
There could
because
be another one
it's
that opens up
the
soon.
whole. Yeah, in I get it. but it's the vaping industry and the concern over what vaping is doing to our children, okay, and what possible side effects that it is having, where it's leading, okay. And by the way, there's also a lack of information, okay, of where this is going, okay, and what vaping is done. I read an article that, again, it is worse than cigarette smoking in terms of contracting cancer, okay? So with that said, there are articles out there, but David, if there was 1%,
I'm not arguing
of
that.
truth to
I'm
that.
not arguing all those points. What I'm arguing is let's be
understand.
careful about singling
I
out
understand.
one business.
That's why I say
the
I'll
only
throw it
point.
out there that it's the industry itself.
Second
that
question
is
I
a
had
concern.
is, so alcohol, you have to be 21 for alcohol or 18? I don't.
21.
21.
21. Okay. So we're just moving, basically, we'd be moving cigarettes, vaping, any type of, nicotine products would be moving up to 21.
I think to that point too, the state, I think there's legislation at the state level right now that's planning on increasing it to 21, so I think we're just a little bit ahead of the game.
Next question, I was more on Doug. So the recreational marijuana bill, was that 21 also, the legal age for that? Or
Yes.
is it 18?
21.
It's 21.
Yes.
Okay.
And you have to be licensed.
To enlist in the U.S.
So,
Armed Services, it's what?
18.
18.
Well, if you lie, 17.
Okay. Why did you? All right. Just throwing that out there.
Right.
No.
If I might, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
First, who wrote this, Mike?
KP Law.
KP Law did. I know that one of the, and I can't find it in here. I can't find it right now. I didn't underline it. Was to also have at the point of sale that the person making the sale had to be 21. Is that included in this?
I don't know.
Because I can't find it right now scanning through because I didn't underline it. Second, if we're going to do this, then we should take the opportunity to put spice and synthetic cannabis in there.
Exactly.
And third,
Of what, I'm sorry?
spice and synthetic cannabis.
Bath salts and all that stuff.
It's all, yeah.
All that stuff is
What is
just
it?
as bad.
Well, I think to your point, Doug, I think what the concern is, right, is that even though you can identify a particular product for a certain use, even though it's designated for a certain use, it could be used for other things. Even if you don't advertise it that way, it could be used for other things pretty easy.
Well, we all know in legal parlance that you have to have every T and every I and every comma and every, and all, tittle and every word made known to man
Yeah.
in that particular, to cover it. So I'm just thinking, it might be a good idea to include those two.
agree.
And three,
Bath salts.
before we vote on anything like this,
Yep.
to put it on the town warrant, because we are
No.
looking at what's caused this all to come to a head was because of the store that sells vapes. That's what brought this whole thing to a head. And we haven't talked to the owner as a board. Now, I've talked to him a couple of times to make sure that he wasn't going to try to sell cannabis or those types of things. He's put in all kinds of protections based on the law, 18. But I think that we shouldn't be voting on this before he has a chance to come into the community. And who knows how it affects the rest of the stores. Now, I do know there's like 130 communities within Massachusetts that have raised the age of to 21. I don't necessarily have an issue with that, but I think we need to do, we ought to have input from those retail, especially if someone has to be 21 years old at the cash register.
See, I was more, that's what I got to my point, was this shouldn't be singling out just the vapes. It's
Right.
also cigarettes, right?
Yes.
Any
Right.
type of nicotine product.
Yes.
So we're not just singling him out in that particular business. So I don't think we need to hear from him on it, because we're not singling him
Well,
out.
we did. This is what brought it all up.
Again, agreed, but there could have
There's
been.
only one shop in the town to sell them.
Well, let me ask you a question, Doug.
Yeah.
What is he going to come in and say? Okay. And listen, I'm open to hearing from anybody.
Oh,
right? And I'm actually,
I
to tell you the
can't
truth,
speak
I'm
for
actually
him.
considering it. But what is he gonna say, okay, that is gonna detract, at least my opinion, that we're protecting our kids in town?
I don't
Period.
know.
That's all it
I
is.
don't know what he's gonna say because I can't speak.
And by
for
the
him.
way, if we have him, then we have to have every
Crosby's,
business.
Johnny's,
You're right.
all cigarette people that sell cigarettes.
Well, I'm
Well,
saying that you have to take that in consideration, what impact that has on the,
Yeah, I don't,
what impact that has on those stores
All the
that
retailers.
will now need to have someone 21 at the cash register if someone buys cigarettes or.
well, then you have that with alcohol.
They have that
no?
with alcohol now. They
So
have
I
to
don't
call
think
it.
it's going to be a big deal. I mean, you go to Crosby's, if someone wants, you ever try to buy a bottle of wine? If you have someone under 21,
No, I
they don't even look at you. They're looking around the
Oh,
store.
and they grab some.
You know,
The
when they
only
grab
time you
someone.
get a bottle
So-
of wine is if someone gives it to us.
I just don't, yeah, I don't see that being that
That's
big.
a ripple number. So,
And again, I just don't find,
it's fine.
Well, I can't vote on something like this until we do the proper diligence on it.
well,
This has come
Yeah.
from
We've got time.
some Facebook rabbit hole regarding because a vape store opened.
no, actually, no, you're wrong, Doug. I have spoken with a lot of people in my kind of network of people that I congregate with, and there wasn't one person, Doug, not one. And by the way, my area of people are people with kids. Okay, so I'll throw that out.
I have kids.
All right, but I mean, I have a 9 and 11-year-old, right? And most of the people that we're hanging with, you know, have those kids in that same age group. But I also know some people with some teenagers, right? And believe me, I mean, it was all over Facebook. I get it, but it's not just that. All right, I've had plenty of conversations outside of that. Okay, and there's not one person, because again, the downside is what, you know, we're trying to protect our kids. What? That's all we're doing here.
I
So-
understand
Point,
that.
Joe, I think to your point though, we didn't, I just want to make it clear that we're not singling out one particular business. It may have spurred some conversation, but there's been conversation in the past with other businesses that may or may not have wanted to open up in the downtown. I think what this discussion, whether it was because of a certain store or not, is irrelevant. I think what we determined is that we looked at the bylaws and they're antiquated. And we want to update the bylaws and we want to be with the times.
This is
And I
not a
think
bylaw.
that's where we, I'm
Local
sorry?
ordinance.
a local ordinance, I'm sorry. And that's where we are today, is we're updating it. Again, it isn't just to raise the age to 21. There are other elements in here. As it stands today, the only way that the Board of Health will get involved with a business that opens, that has tobacco products that they need a permit for is strictly tobacco products. You come into town, you want to sell tobacco, you need to go to the Board of Health. You go in town today, you want to sell anything that contains any type of nicotine, you don't have to go to the Board of Health. And I think that's important to note, that it isn't just this 21 or older, it's updating the ordinance.
I agree with you, Steve, 100%.
Well, I certainly agree with updating a lot of these ordinances and including any bylaws that we have. So,
Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, if I may, you know, other than my wife, I've maybe had one person concerned come to me. So I think we need to, as a board, I gotta throw this out there now. I mean, I think we need to be careful with social media and where we're going with it. And I mean, are we perhaps sometimes, because I hear the word "we" about, we've discussed this, we've discussed that, but I asked a question at a previous meeting, who's the "we"? And I can understand the concern when something of this sort opens up. And, you know, and as it's said, right down the street, it could have gone someplace else. I think Steve has been putting it best. The laws are rather old and perhaps do need updating. But I can support this board sending a letter to the Board of Health saying, you know, would you relook at updating with today's, I don't know now the words I'm looking for again, but, you know, with what has going on today, to relook at your regulations. But I don't want to, as a board, say, here's the regulations I want you to have. I think that if that lies with them, that lies with them. I could support saying, you know, would you relook at the regulations? Anybody, once they do that, they're in open session. They're probably gonna have to have a public meeting. Anybody's here willing, can go there and speak to that. And that's about all that I could support. I mean, you know, hey, Board of Health, would you take another look at these things? Do they need to be updated? Are they an antique in today's day and age? That I could support. But to be giving them this, you can give it to them, but I don't want it coming as, this is from the Board of Selectmen, would you please put this there? I can't support that, you know? I could support saying, here's a template that, you know, KP Law has said might be a good one. But that's as far as I can go. If you go any further than that, like adding the years 21 in there, I can't support that. And I want to be careful that, as was said, we're not singling out anybody. So by just saying, would you take a new look at the laws, that I could support.
So what's the problem with raising, why wouldn't you support raising 18 to 21, Gary?
I think that is their decision, and I think if any members of this board,
we're just trying to
if any members of this board want to go there and express their concerns, I think that, because earlier we talked about procedure, and if the procedure is that the Board of Health does these regulations, then I'd say that's the better place for a lot of the conversation about the age in that. Not necessarily here. I don't think under procedure, it really falls under what we as a board do.
I think you're speaking the same language. I think what Gary's saying is to say to them, look, we, the Board of Selectmen, feel that our laws are antiquated. Here's a template that legal counsel has put together. We leave it up to you to decide, you know, you know, this is the template that we got from them, and, you know, again, we could say whether we're personally in agreement with it or not, but I like Doug's idea that there has to be more to it. Maybe we add the spice stuff there. And is any of that is any of that stuff being sold in town?
Not that I know.
I've never even heard of it.
Not
It's
I
that
know of.
bath salts and it's basically a
Well,
synthetic
it's not
marijuana.
Tide Pods.
No, it's not the Tide
So
Pods.
what I'm
Jesus.
saying is that at their meeting is really, I think,
You
where
can
that
get synthetically
the discussion
high.
should be going.
Right. I don't. Even if we voted this, it's non-binding. It's their vote.
No, we're voting just to send it to them, Mike, right? That's all we're doing.
Well, you were
Just
asking,
consider.
So
you were asking to put,
where did this request come from? Not who wrote it. How did this, did you request town council to come up with a thing for the Board of Health, or did Board of Health call town council and say, come up with
No, I, at the after last meeting, when we had a brief discussion, I asked KP Law to put something together that could pass legal muster.
Well, I'm gonna make an assumption that the Board of Health is aware of this.
No, they're not.
I don't think that's a problem. I think we just sent a letter to them that says, look, we think that the laws are antiquated, and this is a suggestion, you know, that maybe we can get behind to look at, not in verbatim in stone, but take a look at it, because it's ultimately their decision.
Well,
anyway.
yes, it's the Board of Health's decision.
Right.
I don't necessarily have any substantive
so maybe
problem with 21. All right, I just want to make sure that we're doing this, and that from my point of view, I saw all this stuff on Facebook and going, and I've been down to talk to Stu 2 or 3 different times about his business to see if he would support a 21, you know, but no one else has talked to him about it, and it came about because of the vape thing, and it is something we need to look at.
I broke my own cardinal rule by chiming in. I was the first person to chime in, and then it went to, you know, like I think it was 400 posts or something. But
More than that.
yeah, it's probably a lot bigger, to the point where it really started to get insulting, and I just
And
I didn't want to chime back
and
in.
if I need to add something else, Mr. Chair,
Sure.
because the Georgetown Cares Coalition Committee was brought up. The Georgetown Cares Coalition Committee is not a police force of, you know, trying to influence regulation or anything else. We're there for education and providing resources. Okay, so the Georgetown Cares Coalition really holds no opinion on this. We may hold opinions individually, but not as a board or a committee.
Mike, has a new chair been elected on the Board of Health?
Their meeting was today,
Yeah.
so it was on the agenda, yes.
Do they have a
Can I
quorum?
make a motion,
Can
Mr.
I
Chair?
make a suggestion before Gary? Yeah, before you make your
Okay.
motion. Can we vote to present the template to the Board of Health and then take, if it's the pleasure of the board, take a vote whether we agree or we don't agree with increasing it to 21, but we let the Board of Health decide
I-
what they're gonna do.
I want to make a motion that I move that this board send a letter to the Board of Health, asking them at their earliest convenience to take a new look at the Georgetown Board of Health regulations for the sale of tobacco and nicotine delivery products. Do I need to add anything else in there? Somebody let me know. But, and that we also send along the correspondence that we have from KP Law, that they have provided us with some of the newer laws that they have come up with. Might be lengthy, but
Maybe newer regulations.
newer regulations. Sending along the template that we have received from KP Law.
But without the.
The age wasn't in there, is that your question?
Yeah, so
No,
you
I'm
want to send
not,
something
I'm
without
not
the age.
recommending that, I'm just recommending that we ask them to take a look at their regulations that they have, and that we send along this, what was it?
It's 21.
The template, it's in the
The
template.
template.
Yeah,
It's in the template.
Doesn't it tell-
I am not making that, saying that we're recommending the
Right,
template,
well, we can
that
always
we're
do that
just
later.
moving this forward to them.
I'll second that
No, it's-
motion.
Yep.
I'll second that motion.
So we have a motion, a second, further discussion.
Do we,
So we're recommending sending this over and them adopting the,
No.
asking that I was asking that we send a letter asking them to take a look at revising.
this.
That revising
There's a good
the
template for you.
ordinance
Take a look
or
at that.
regulations.
Let's see what they come up with.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's open,
They
you
can
know,
use this as a
the
template.
decision it's open is up to the townspeople.
And I
Right,
was
so-
well,
recommending
the Board of
that,
Health first.
I was recommending that,
Well, as the Board of
So-
Health is discussing this, there should be people in town that are
yeah, I think
are
that's the
adamant
place.
about it, and they should have discussions.
Well, my worry is that the Board of Health doesn't get to this and adopt something by the time that we need to put a warrant
Doesn't need a
article in.
warrant.
We don't need a warrant.
If they turn it down, it does.
They do, right.
That's what I'm saying. If they turn it down, I do not
Well,
want
we
to wait
could,
till.
we
part of
could,
the
we could
process.
vote on a placeholder for that. We have until our next
Right.
meeting to do that, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, we could do that.
All right, I'll
That makes
I'll
sense.
do a placeholder.
Yeah,
So any further discussion?
Yes, all we're really doing is doing like we did with the streets. We're moving it to the entity that needs to do the work on that.
Well, as long as the entity
We've made our
knows,
opinions now.
kind of, what the
I also,
discussion is.
I also put in the motion to ask them at their earliest convenience.
Can we put a date instead of earliest
Oh.
convenience? That we ask them to look at this and return it back to us by,
Okay, what's a date we need to, if we
Make
want
it
to
a
put a
date certain.
placeholder?
Well, if we
Let's
have a
say-
placeholder, then they could get it back to us by, the end
like,
of
what's a
April.
good date?
Middle of April, who's
15
got our
April.
meeting schedules?
No, you, before that.
When's the next time that they're meeting?
April 1st at the latest.
By Monday, March 26th, rather. March follows right along with February, so I say last meeting in March would be the 26th. So instead of at their earliest convenience, I will, what's the
okay,
termination I need
That's
to
like a month
use
and a
here?
half.
I
I'll,
was gonna say, why can't we just give them a month? I mean, that seems plenty of time for me.
No
going to
later-
amend,
no
instead
later-
of at
no
the
later.
earliest convenience, to try to get back to us by March 26th.
With
I would say no later than.
No later than March 26th, okay?
You're gonna work.
Get it all, Janet?
Our fingers have been going.
I don't
If the
know.
concern, if I could, Mr. Chair, if the concern
still
is
vote
the
on it.
21, I think we
We
can
can take a
still
separate vote on
vote.
that.
Yeah, we still can vote.
Non-binding
and
vote.
You've got a
the board
motion.
can just give their
You've
opinion
got a motion
on
in
whether they
front of you.
support 21 or
I
not.
got a motion for you after
That's
this.
fine.
All right.
No, I don't, yeah, I don't want to be an influence on the Board of Health right now. As an individual, I may,
Right.
but I don't want the Board of Health going, well, the selectmen.
That's right, we're not,
But Doug, I have a problem with that statement because we're all representing the citizens of Georgetown. I have heard loud and clear from the citizens that I have spoken with. I've seen dozens and dozens and hundreds of comments on Facebook. That's all and as a representative of those citizens, that's kind of where I'm leaning here.
then,
We're
Can I
on the
say-
same page, Joe, it's just a matter of process.
Yes, have
And the
some
weight of
faith
this
in the
board shouldn't
process.
come down on the Board of Health.
Yes.
The Board of Health should say, yeah, we'll look at this, and
But you're saying you don't want to be an influence. Isn't that what we're here for?
if I want to go down there and talk to the Board of Health
yes,
committee about this, then I'll do so.
that's the.
As
that's
a
the
selectman and as a private citizen.
Mr.
But
Chairman,
not,
can we move the question,
Sure.
please? Move the question.
what's a motion?
Get a vote.
So motion and a second is on the table. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we, the Board of Selectmen of Georgetown, send a non-binding vote, take a non-binding vote and send a letter to the Board of Health recommending that we support the age move to 21 for tobacco products.
Okay, motion and a second. Further discussion?
I can say that I don't have an issue with the age of 21, but I have an issue with this motion, that I wouldn't be able to vote for
I
it.
said non-binding recommendation from the Board of
Yeah, I
Selectmen.
just don't, I'm gonna abstain.
See where it goes.
All right, so all those in favor?
Aye.
I'll abstain.
Abstain? Nay?
Nay?
Okay.
That's all. So we just give them our opinion and that's
Well,
it.
I'll just
We
go to
from
the
there.
Board of Health meeting, or down to see Deb.
When do they meet, Mike? That's another question. Do they meet during the day?
AM.
Yeah.
Morning, like,
Good morning,
not, usually
guys.
it's like.
Yeah, it's like
9
8
a.m.
o'clock in the morning.
Is Joe still on that
Yeah.
board? No, he moved on.
No, he resigned. They have a new chair.
Do they have a quorum?
They do, yeah, they have a new member and a new chair.
There we go.
Yeah,
yeah, we-
Dana shuttle work.
Yeah, we just.
He took Joe's spot.
Yes.
All right, next on the agenda, the warrants, Mike. What do you want to talk about with that?
Well, just to give you an update.
Yep.
The first, two pages are, I'm thinking we probably should move Article 8 into the consent calendar, because this is the second year in a row that we've had this, authorizing revolving funds. But we've done that, authorizing them to continue and further setting their spending limits. We used to have individual warrant articles for each revolving fund. Now we're required to just do it all in one.
Do you need a vote from us to move that there?
Pardon me?
Do you need a vote from us to move it? No, right?
No, I'm just saying, I have to look into that. If it can be in that group, then we should probably put it in the consent calendar. Then, on page 4 of 8, these have not been discussed by the Finance Committee. They've been moved forward by the CIP Committee.
I didn't put a no next to that one though.
And these will be, you'll want to be discussing them after the warrant closes, whether they carry through to the town meeting or not. this is just to give you a heads up on it. There is a, in your binder, your budget binder, tab 20 shows the CIP report. Doesn't give a whole lot of more explanation, but the committee did make recommendations for types of funding for these articles as well. Some were free cash and others were short-term notes.
Sure, Steve.
Go ahead.
So in terms of how this is to be funded, are we talking about a debt exclusion or something in town?
No,
Town meeting, no?
no, most of them are from, are coming out of free cash.
Right, yeah, I see
And
those,
then,
but the
yeah,
one for the
no,
short term.
it's a short-term note, it's a 5-year note.
Paid by budgeted funds within the
Yes.
individual budget.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
So like a lease for a police cruiser gets paid the same way.
Gotcha,
Right.
okay. Even the pump truck for 600,000, that would?
Yeah, that would be a lease,
Also, okay,
a lease purchase.
okay.
Yeah, that wasn't on the original, that was in for FY '20, but on Saturday, without any recommendation from the CIP, the FinCom felt an urgency that it maybe needed to put it on this year's, because we're looking at a full, it would be a full year from now till we got a new truck. And during the discussion, and the chief will be happy to discuss it with you too, the repair costs for that truck have become really exorbitant. We're spending 15 to 20,000 per year just to keep it on the road. So we're almost up to
Payment for a new one.
it would be 77,000, about $77,000, which was what?
Just what it was last
Remember that number?
Yeah.
But
Wow,
thi-
they're doing repairs for 50 a year?
15.
Oh, 50.
But if we have a plan other than,
So that's just a heads up. And then the board had a short discussion on the plastic bag ban. That could go either way. That could be a Board of Health regulation as well.
And we were talking about that in a couple of
Yeah.
things here.
Okay. And then it's up to you whether you want to put a town quorum, change the town quorum rule.
To below 100, is that what we're saying?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we get all those Facebook people to show up to a town meeting.
You either, well, you can lower the number or eliminate it altogether. Those are your basic options. And this is by no means, this is just a FYI, the town clerk and the highway surveyor are coming up for reelection in 2 years. So if you were ever gonna do any changes, this would be the year to do it, because you need to give the incumbent a heads up in a year in advance, that you would switch the position from appointed to, from elected to appointed. I'm not commenting on on whether it should be done or not. I'm just telling you the timing is ripe for
Can I-
doing that.
can I say that's sort of a comment, Mike? Because I don't know that as a board we've ever discussed those two things. So by those being in front of us, I think you're making a comment.
This is all new to me, I don't know why these two are on here.
I'm
so
not.
If you could enlighten me.
Well, then how did they get there is my question.
it has been voted on in the past in town. And the town clerk may be retiring. She's not discussed it in public, but it's just the time to look at it.
Then you're making a statement. At least what I'm saying is, say, it's the time to look at it. I feel you need to look at it. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
That's what I said.
I didn't hear it that way. I heard it as I'm not making a comment on it. Okay, so that's all I'm saying. I mean, as a board, we've not discussed it. If it's in front of us, say, I think for these reasons, it's time to look at it and perhaps give us some information on it. Don't be shy about it.
I'll chime in on that, but this was also part of the study that we got from the state. It said that we really need to start looking at the structure of the town. And I think this would be a way to take a look at that without having to do this whole town charter thing. I mean, if we, you know, personally, I'd like to see some boards on there that are elected right now be appointed by the Board of Selectmen, to be honest.
Those would
That's just
take,
my personal
those
view.
would take charter changes.
Those are charter changes. So these are
Charter
the only
adoption.
two positions, Mike, in the town that are elected right now that could be appointed without doing a complete charter change?
That's my understanding, yes. Because we've already done the treasurer and collector position.
Right. So this would be basically putting those two positions that are basically kind of, would put it under our control. Just like the two fire chiefs, because at one point the fire chief was elected, wasn't it? Wasn't there a strong
Board of
chief?
Fire
There was a board of fire
Commissioners.
commissioners.
Board of Fire Commission.
Yeah. So I think Gary's right. You are making a statement, but you're not. But
I'm not
By putting it
making
on
a
there.
statement on the
the individuals. but-
performance
right
of
on,
the
right.
individuals that are in the job.
Time to make a look.
They're-
Suggestion.
They're both making,
So this
they're-
would
they
put-
both do a great
I'm
job.
reporting to the Board of Selectmen.
Yep.
As opposed to not reporting to
Anybody.
Anybody right now.
The voters.
Right. Well, I mean, listen.
I
we
mean, they
approve
cooperate with they're very cooperative. There's no
Yeah, I was
underlying reason other
I'm just
than.
wondering what the pros and cons
I
are.
guess
for
that's
this, yeah.
part of my reason for going down that road. I mean, I don't want the undercurrents here of somebody saying to me, how did that get on there? And I don't know, I guess Joe put it on there, you know?
Right.
You know, I'll blame everything on you, Joe. So, I mean,
That's-
at least we understand.
That's what he's there for.
Gary, he's a chair.
No, but at least, let's have some understanding of how and why it got here. That's what I'm trying to get at. I don't support either one of them,
get
but
it now.
I want to at least, you know,
And David's correct.
I remember that part of it, but we never.
DOR recommended it.
They did put that in their recommendations,
Yeah.
that we had more
But there's a lot
control over some of these appointments, and go from elected to what do you call it? But it hasn't been discussed in a long time, so in a way, you are making a statement, Mike. But we'll leave it
It's
at that.
time to discuss it again.
Right, okay.
My goodness,
That's
David.
my only statement.
Have I still got it in there? I mean,
So, may
I
I
carried
make a
that
comment?
DOR
Yeah, it's there.
around with me for 5 years.
Hold on, guys.
Got the-
You can say something about the structure.
The-
You can say
No, I
specific-
remember.
SCBA cylinders and helmets for the fire department. Wasn't the chief here talking to us about
Yeah, I gotta
Yeah,
get
that was
either
a
getting a grant or?
It was matching
He's
funds.
applying for a grant.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
This, if we didn't get the grant, we have a placeholder.
He needs it, yeah.
He still needs the helmet.
Okay.
Right.
One way or the
All right.
other.
I just wanted kind of an update
Yeah.
on that.
Wasn't there some matching funds in that too? Did we have to cough up some money, or was it all free? I thought we had.
I think we had to pony up some money in
I
there.
thought we had a piece in that. I
We had
can't
to
remember.
front some money for
Right.
We had to front the other
Right.
towns.
That was exactly,
Right,
because there was
right,
another
there was a
town
pool.
with us, right?
Yeah.
And then we got
Yes,
reimbursed.
we'd have to we'd have to
percentage.
appropriate it anyway.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question about the school department? So auditorium curtain, I know curtains are expensive, at least that's what my wife tells me. But $19,000.
Wow. See the curtains of Joe with those 19 grand. Wow, really?
The stage.
The stage are expensive.
We're
You have to
in
be
the wrong
fireproof,
business.
everything.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
okay.
They're
Very
fireproof.
It
Very
seems like a lot,
expensive.
yeah, okay.
They're fire
It's
resistant.
not the one that
any-
separates the boys and girls, huh, like they used to have. Right down the middle of
Gary,
it.
I don't, no peeking through them, Gary.
Okay.
All right.
The library security system. What do we have? Really, people breaking into the library? The steel
Not
box
breaking
on the-
in, it's what goes on inside the library when it's open.
Also, they're for cameras and.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
A lot of
You never know.
unsupervised areas.
No.
That was the number one priority of the CIP committee, by the way.
Oh, okay. But that, they already have a security system for the outside, right?
I think
The
they do.
doorways?
Yeah, I think they do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but
okay.
This is
So strictly
interior.
internal.
Question on that one, if I could, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Could that in any way come from cable advisory for technical improvement? Or is that stretching it?
Maybe it's, I mean, they get free cable services. I don't know that they get free, and they're going to put, Janet was talking about putting a cable studio in the building,
Oh, again?
but I don't think, I mean, it's worth looking into, but I don't
Okay.
think so.
Okay.
Do we get a report of CIP, and as you, if I may, Mr. Chair, as you said, that was the number one, that we could perhaps see a report that,
Yeah, the finance committee usually gets the report
okay.
from the CIP, and
I apologize, wasn't myself this weekend and completely missed that.
yeah, they'll probably take up CIP, later in March.
Anybody else have anything else? No? Okay. Like, we didn't need to vote on anything, right?
No,
No,
this
okay.
is just FYI.
So you were, I just wanted to clarify, you were gonna combine Article 8 with what?
With the,
Can I
Consent calendar.
throw
Consent
something out there
calendar.
on the warrant, Mr. Chair?
it would just be
Sure, momentarily.
6, 7, 8.
Oh, okay.
Move it into the consent calendars.
Well, right at the top it says, oh, that's because you wrote this, okay. That was the change. All right.
Okay, Gary, quickly.
Just to consider it for our next meeting, taking into activities on the board, on this board earlier. I wonder if we want to take another look. I never supported disbanding the personnel committee. Do we want to perhaps consider revisiting that issue?
Spending what, I'm sorry?
At
Personnel.
several years ago, there was a personnel committee started in town because of, I think, certain things that happened. And then several years ago, the town voted to disband it. And Dave served on that for a while. I don't know that you was fully in support of it. There was some thoughts of sort of like the Board of Health things. There were some parts of how the committee performed that I think were could have been improved. And perhaps we
Yeah,
could.
we got it late. We got on late, and we were making some progress. It was John Smolinski, myself, and I don't remember the.
But that was
we,
also.
We just started to make progress, and then we disbanded it.
And that was also how you went to look at what's in front of us for wage and classification. If anybody felt that their wages were unfair, that would be the committee they would go to. They at times had made recommendations back to this board that re-raise certain salaries and things of that sort. And so I just don't know. I've just thrown it out there for some consideration. As I said, not to speak for Dave, but he had the most involvement with it. And he felt that, if I can remember, that he felt that if the board was properly set up, it could have worked very well.
Yeah,
What we had wasn't working.
We had taken, there was some 2 vacancies, and myself and John Smolinski jumped in there, and I thought we were just starting to make progress, and things were, and I think the police chief, fire chief, Mike, we were making some progress on some things, and then we disbanded it at town meeting. I was disappointed because I thought we were going to be able to, kind of like the other boards, have 3 people, and then Mike, work with Mike as the
Yes, 'cause
personnel director. I thought it was just starting to work great, and we you know, we kiboshed it at town meeting. And I was against the vote. I raised my hand against, and we wiped it out. But in order to put that back in play, don't we have to adopt another chapter again? And is there a whole
Yeah.
structure of the law that we
I'm
have
not
to
saying it would
re-adopt?
be easy.
Right, right,
Um,
right.
But perhaps we need to, you know, and I can understand, you know, a lot of disbanding it came from Mike because he felt that it was difficult for him to do certain aspects of his job while working with that board.
Right.
But,
It was long gone before we got there. The handwriting was on the wall, but we tried, you know, we really tried to make a go of it.
So I'm just suggesting we may wanna look down that road again, whether it not be for this time around.
Janet's
Mr.
waving her
Chair.
hand.
I have my hand up over there.
No, I did.
She was a liaison.
Please
if I remember
identify yourself.
right.
Yeah, please identify yourself for the minutes.
Please, no.
I was also on the personnel board before you were on it for a while. And it didn't, at that time, it didn't work good. It was very hard because you had, and the way it was set up, you did have to have an employee of the town also on the board. And it didn't work good. for a
I'm
lot
not
of
saying
years,
I-
even before and after. And I mean, I got on it and it was, people just didn't understand how municipal government worked and the structure. And people worked of how, you know, a business and the municipal is different.
So I guess what I'm,
We have to have the right people on the
There are
board to make
perhaps
it
some-
work.
some
Yeah, and
templates
to
out
keep-
there that do work.
To keep the right people on, it was very difficult to fill that board, and
Okay.
it wasn't functional for a lot of years. You know, that I worked in the office.
Yes,
you
that
know,
was my
on-
memory of it in the beginning. It wasn't.
You
It
couldn't get
wasn't.
quorums.
Yes, yeah, because I think it was a 7-member board for one thing, wasn't it?
Took over 2 years to rewrite the personnel plan, bylaw, the
Yeah,
guideline.
the only advantage, I think, of disbanding that group is all those issues come to us here. And I think it gets addressed and it gets done. That's,
It
again,
wasn't getting done.
there's not another level of, that's the only advantage I can
Well,
see.
the old way was it came to you and then it went to the
That was it,
personnel
right.
board.
Right, then if you didn't get it back, you know, yeah, it was kind of dysfunctional. I could go either way with this. I don't know if I've got the energy to really dig into this again.
Well, folks, for the sake of time, the suggestion's been made. Think about it. If anybody has some strong feelings moving forward, you can bring it up in another meeting, okay?
Fine.
All right, union contract ratification. Mike, you want to update us on this?
Yeah, we have the police command staff contract ready
Yep.
for adoption and signature. It was settled back in the fall. It's looking at 2% increases for the next 3 years, retroactive to this last July 1. And there was a change in the dollar amount for special coverage details. And that is pretty much it in a nutshell.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the union contract. Let me get the actual description here, sorry. Between the town and the American Federation of State, County, Municipal Employees, AFL-CIO, Council 93, Local 939, Local Command Staff, for the period to cover July 1st, 2017 through June 30th, 2020.
Okay, motion and second. Further discussion?
If I may,
Sure.
looking at this today, I did not have this as quite a thick package. I did not have time to look this over lengthily. And, you know, before we get to here, I mean, I know we have to do the approval in open session, but it would have been nice to have perhaps gone over this while we were in a private session like we can do on this, so that we can say, okay, this was the one that we're looking at, because what is it, have we signed the others, or is this just
No,
the
this is
first
the-
one?
We've been wordsmithing it since the fall, passing it back and forth between the union and the town.
Yeah.
You've essentially agreed to it already.
Yes, I know. It just, to me, it would have been nice to have had the time to go over it and look at it and to refresh one's memory on where we are with it before we have to approve it. That's all I'm saying. You know, we discussed these things all along up to here in private session, which we're allowed to, because it's contractual. And I just would have liked that opportunity to close it out that way and then come here and we could all say, yep, we worked diligently on this and here we are, let's sign it. So,
Okay, any further discussion? Anybody? No? All right, so with that, being said, I'm gonna put it to a vote. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 nay.
Nay? Okay, 4-1. This one was this, right? Just gonna pass it like that. It's only one signature. And then on this one too. Okay. Right, and that's the paper clips in the document. Okay. All right. While we're signing, so the plastic bag restriction. I'll
I'll get it later.
as everybody knows, during one of our meetings, I did throw out the suggestion, that the town go to restricting plastic bags. I did have some questions regarding how other towns have done it, and I actually even went myself to Newburyport. And I actually shopped a Market Basket, and and I actually saw, what the suggestions were. It was pretty interesting. But going into the store, did the shopping. A lot of folks brought in their own cloth, I'll call them bags. I didn't have any cloth bags with me. Okay, so I was kind of interested to see what they were offering. So one thing I found out is that they do offer paper bags, which I have a problem with because it kind of goes along the same route. I mean, paper, plastic. I would rather just go to reusable bags. So they had the option for me to actually purchase the cloth bags, okay, which was one price, but also reusable plastic bags, right, which are much thicker, okay, than the thin plastic, right. And literally right on the plastic bag, it says reusable up to 200 times. Okay, they were 10 cents each. Okay, I needed 9 of them. Right, cost me $100 to buy these 9 bags. Okay, that all I do is bring them to the store. I did it again this weekend, and I think that I kind of felt like I was doing my part. Number one. But also number 2, I want to make sure that everyone understands doing more and more research on this, that the state now has a lot of support, I'll say, to kind of do this even ahead of us. I mean, I talked at the last meeting. There are a number of communities around us that have done it, and they've gone again to those plastic bags. They've gone to the cloth bags that you have to bring. Some actually don't even offer the paper, but if you want paper, you have to pay for it again. Personally, I would rather just be done with the whole thing. You have to either bring the your reusable plastic or your reusable cloth, and it just goes to, once again, the community kind of doing their part, in protecting our community, protecting the earth. And again, I can't remember. I threw out a bunch of numbers. I put out some specifics on why communities do this in terms of plastic. What it does to our environment. But again, it's just kind of a way for Georgetown to step up and actually do their part. Once again, I will also throw out there that I kind of put it out there on social media what my experience was. And, I did get a lot of feedback, once again, very positive. There were a couple of, naysayers, right, that didn't like it. But I would say 90% of the feedback I got was, the quote unquote, it's about time. That was a big one. That, plenty of people were for it. So again, as selectmen listen to our, citizens of town, I needed to give that feedback because I was interested, in getting some feedback, when I did post. But I know for me, I thought it was a great experience. Some of the naysayers said, well, I don't want, I don't want to, bring my own bags, or, some you reuse them for, different things, which I'm not going to note. But, a lot of people basically said if you do it, in the course of, action a couple of times, it's really not a big deal. And for me, doing it last weekend, it wasn't a big deal. Okay, I put them in my car when I used them the first time. So when I went back, they were already there. Carried them in, put them in the cart. When I got to the cash register, put them in. Again, it's just one of those things where I don't see the negative, in this at all, other than maybe some people that don't have bags to pick up after their dogs. I mean, I just don't accept that as an excuse. I just don't. Okay. If there was something, really substantial, then fine. But I just don't accept that as, as an excuse. So and then I mentioned, even in the last meeting, I am guilty of that. I am 1,000% guilty of that, and I'm willing to make that change. So I am hoping that the town gets behind the plastic bag restriction. I would, again, like to not only do plastic, I'd also like to do paper as well, because plastic paper, the paper is still, something that, still goes in the garbage, or still
breaks down.
Yeah, so
That breaks down.
it breaks down, but it's still, somewhat of a waste. I'm looking for, options that we
Have
can
you tried the
reuse.
paper bags,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman? They're not paper bags like we had when we were kids.
Oh,
These things are so thin.
They're very thin.
that
They're not even worth it.
They must disintegrate really quick. Because
Yeah,
I did the same thing and got some bags at I think I want to say Rowley Food Master. It was either Rowley, maybe it was Newburyport. No, it was Newburyport.
Yeah.
But
Although Raleigh does offer them,
right.
but you don't have
the village, by the way, downtown has gone to paper because I was there this weekend and I got my food in a paper bag and I was like, wow, you guys went to paper already? They said, yeah.
Yep.
So I said, well, I'm going to report that to the board Monday night.
Yep.
And for that, they charged me extra. No, I'm kidding. So there are a lot of cities and towns that have moved over this. I have a process question, though.
Mm-hmm.
It says, again, this is the Board of Health's decision, not ours.
Well, it's either or. Unlike the tobacco,
Yeah.
this is what legal counsel told me. Most towns go the Board of Health route for tobacco. And most towns go for town meeting for bags.
Okay.
But you can do either or.
Right.
So,
In Melrose, Dave, now even that one option was not us deciding it. The last community that I know of that did it was Melrose. Okay, and their board of aldermen, I think, they voted it.
yeah, they don't
Yeah,
have a town meeting.
Exactly. So, but I mean, there was a different type, but yeah, I mean, I have no problem putting it on a warrant as as you guys saw in the warrant to at least get voted. I think we'd be remiss to at least put it on the warrant to be voted. I mean, it's just the way this goes. And again, gentlemen, I can't stress enough, the state is even looking at doing this as a state commitment. So this is something that we're kind of getting. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, I had a question. We're talking about plastic bag ban, or here it says plastic bag restriction. We're not really banning plastic, because I think all the towns that have gone through this restriction, they allow plastic. It just needs to be a
The thicker one.
thicker plastic.
Yeah.
one use.
So how,
Yeah, it says
yeah, I
single use.
mean, I know that I use my little, the thin plastic, those are reusable. We have a little spot where we put them, we stuff them in this bag and,
Sock,
Yeah.
the big sock.
yeah, big sock, and we reuse them. So I'm just, if I were to support this, I would say, get rid of all plastic together, right? So just use your cloth bags, or you buy your cloth bags there, but, I'm having trouble trying to, understand when we say plastic bag restriction. It isn't really, it's continuing to use plastics, which I think no matter what types of plastic, is probably not good for
What's
the
this single
environment
use?
anyway.
Well, single-use plastic bags.
And it goes by the thickness, so.
Yeah,
Banning
so
any the real thin ones. The
how
ones
does
we're
that
reusing.
help? How does that help
Well,
the
because
environment?
the thicker ones, right? I mean,
you
you
have
can
to-
use them up to 200, 200 times that you can use them, which is what, I don't know, a couple, 2-3 years, So at least it's cutting down. I know what your
Well,
point is,
that's if
Steve. I get
people
it.
do
If they do it.
reuse them, right?
But again, you could certainly go to cloth. But I just think
Yeah.
that people, not everyone's going to want cloth. Again, I got the plastic ones, and again, 10 cents each. That's another thing.
Sure.
A lot less costly, right? I mean, the cloth ones at Market Basket, I think were $2.99. So I spent 90 cents as compared to if I got 9 cloth ones, that's close to $30.
Sure.
So there might be some folks that wouldn't be opposed,
Yeah.
to spending
Yeah, I
that much
like
money
that. I
on,
mean,
on the cloth bags.
So cloths, I mean, I like the idea of having cloth. I know that my wife uses them all the time. She puts them in the back of the car, and when she goes in, boom, she opens them up. So I can support that 100%. I guess where I get kind of, or it's some doubt, I guess, kind of casts over me when I hear plastic bag ban, but you're really not banning plastic bags. You're just saying that it's a thin piece of plastic. It's got to be thick.
Yeah.
You still need people to reuse them, and there really is there's no guarantee of that. So we're actually adding more plastic into the landfills than we were before.
Well, how do you feel? Because if say they went to Crosby's, right, and again they're not offering the single-use bags anymore, right? You either have to have the cloth ones, right, which is what I think both of us would want to see, right?
Yeah.
But or they would have to go and buy the thicker ones,
Mhm.
right? And then again bring them back every single time that they want to go shopping. Now if they forget
Yeah.
those plastic bags at some point in
Well,
time,
you have to buy the
the
thicker
plastic, yeah, you have to.
Oh, okay.
They're 10 cents each.
That's interesting because I went to Ipswich to Tractor Supply Warehouse.
Yep.
You just get the thicker bags. Like you don't have to pay for them. They just put them in the
And,
thicker
and maybe
bags.
that's
And they
the
say
case.
because- yeah, and I couldn't figure that out. I said, well, geez, I'm gonna throw.
They're not
this-
using as many because they can't put many tractors in a plastic bag. As opposed
So
to
there-
Crosby's.
Yeah, I think if we want to do something that's kind of really make an impact,
punchy.
I think we should do cloth. Period.
Well, I mean, we certainly have
Come on,
all
small
kinds of
enough.
options, right?
Yeah, we
I mean,
got a
I'd rather
small enough
not.
community, and we want to make a statement about how earth friendly we are. Well, let's go with cloth and let's scrap plastic. We have too much plastic in the system right now. Except for those the extremely thin ones, which I do reuse. I guess what I'm saying is I really don't. I mean,
I don't think we should go harsher than what
Yeah.
the surrounding communities have. I think it's a matter of preference, and most people
Yeah.
nowadays are recycling. Everybody's seems to be doing their
No,
thing.
I would think
Harsher. I
that
think it's
we'd
smart.
have a discussion on recycling.
I think it's smarter, not harsher, to say
Yeah.
cloth bags. That's it. You don't have cloth bags. You're coming out in the carriage, and you have to look. You go to BJ's, you do the same thing, right? You go to Costco's.
Well, that,
There's no bags in there at all, and everyone seems to work out just fine.
Okay.
So that's my
I'm
comment.
glad you feel good about it, and that's it. I think to me this is feel-good legislation.
It is.
I think education
It's
is the better way to
symbolic. It's
go.
really not
It's not,
sound policy.
it's
It's symbolic.
you know, I've got the 10-cent bags in my truck. I've got the cloth bags. Many people give them away. You don't even have to buy them. Sometimes you find people with credit unions. They do
We've
promotional things, you know. they give them
Please.
away.
Which is probably given
So,
the last 4 years
because
we've given
because
about
it's government
$500,000
regulations, and I am against more government regulations. I feel that what we should be doing is going down the route of education more. I mean, it's easy to forget them. So some of your, you know, I've been to stores in Maine where as you're walking in, where you return the cart, did you remember your cloth bags? I mean, great. Oh yeah, because it's easy to go in and forget them. And then when you're there, it's like, I'm not going back out there. Give me that plastic, you know. So it's living a better lifestyle, as you're saying. But I just don't feel that we have to pass feel-good legislation just for the sake of doing it, because that's what I think. You know, you feel better doing it, and I think that you're going to feel better trying to get this passed. But you're just putting more restrictions on people, and I can't support that. I can support the idea behind it 100%. I just can't saying I think that this is the way to go. Everybody go that way.
And I respect that position, Gary, but what I would say about education is that recycling's been around how long? Forever, right? I mean, as long as I can remember, right?
For me, it first
So
started
30
back
years?
in the 70s because I worked in a can manufacturing plant, and when they wanted to
Alright.
put the bottle bill back in, it was they had all the employees out there saying on the line, they paid us to go out there. Except I wouldn't do it because I was in favor of it, because I thought at the time putting that nickel back on it, that's how I made part of my living as a kid. You went up and down the street, there was a lot less litter because you picked that stuff up. And so, I mean, I would.
70s, we're talking 30, 40 years, right? We'll just, as my point is, you know, listen, I'd be all for education if I knew that even a majority of people would go along with it, right? But I know when I go to Mellows, every week, to dump my recycling off, I'm there with one or two people, right? And it just doesn't seem like, I mean, I know.
Who's in the line?
Yeah, but how long you
A ton of people, right? That don't. I just know them. They don't care. They also don't think that the recycling that you drop off actually is recycled, right? So they're like, what's the difference? Whatever. I guess the whole point is you can educate people, up and down, over and out. I just feel that that fine, it'll help, but you know what? I need. Bags to pick up after my dog.
Well, to the comments,
and they don't care, about
to the
anything.
comments you made earlier. I mean, they may be putting themselves out because as more people are getting their stuff delivered right to their door, and they're not even going to the grocery stores no more. We all. And if you remember my comments last time, I said if you wanted to start anything, if you really understood recycling, you'd realize that styrofoam is one thing that's really difficult to you can't even. There's no way of recycling that. I think in town, a lot just don't want to take it, and I said that might be where you want to start. And I think Duncan's must have listened to me because they're banning their styrofoam. They must have said, listen, do you hear what that guy said? We better take
Well, that was
that.
my question is,
Yeah,
you get a
2020.
paper bag at one of the places and you get the food in one of those styrofoam containers.
No, a lot of them have a lot. If you go places, they have cardboard ones now. And as you mentioned, Ipswich. I think if you go to Ipswich or.
But Tim, you stop putting legislation like this in place, they're going to adjust. One person asked me, well, what's Crosby's going to do? What are they going to do? What are they
Crosby's
gonna-
other stores have already subject to this anyway.
My point, right? You adjust.
They already know.
You adjust with the regulation. There's going to be an alternative. It just hopefully it's more environmentally friendly alternative.
So what's the process at this point? We're just.
Well, you either
I'd
do
like to say
what
something.
you
Yes.
just did with the tobacco and forward it to the Board of Health for consideration, and then, or you just send it straight to town meeting warrant.
I mean, I again, my personal opinion would be, let's send it to Board of Health with the strong suggestion that they adopt it. If that's what that would be in the. Yeah, but that's
not
the
a health
rules.
issue,
It's the rules,
right?
though. That's their bailiwick.
That's
They can do it.
environmental, not health of the residents
No, I
in
think
town. It
that's
isn't-
KP's suggestion. if
Oh,
I'm
was it?
remembering.
Well, they have.
Yeah.
We don't have to bring it to town meeting. It can be done just
That's
Board of
what I
Health
s-
can do it.
Yes.
Period.
See, I would rather
They-
town meeting.
Yeah, they can, but most town, like I said earlier, most towns do take it to town meeting.
Okay.
But you can take it to because the environment is part of the health of
Gotcha.
the town.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna stop, if we wanna put this on the warrant, it's up to the townspeople, I'm not gonna stop it from going on
But
the
that's the
warrant.
thing. Board of Health, my only problem with it is Board of Health is 3 people, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Where
Right.
town meeting, you
You're right.
have 100 people.
All
right.
right.
And you
3.5
let,
feet.
you let a bigger,
This
say, sample size, vote on.
I don't think it's up to us, I think it's up to the townspeople.
So we don't have to vote this tonight, right? This
Oh, no.
just goes on the warrant.
If I could.
Yeah, I was gonna say, go ahead, Doug.
So I'm in agreement 100% with Gary. I'm a smaller government guy. I'm not a bigger government guy. I really dislike it when the government sticks their fingers in my life. However, Pam and I have used cloth bags for years. And so you know where our personal preference is, and we decided to do that. I look at these things, I say, so you have this plastic bag that then goes into a plastic bag that goes to the dump, and then you have all your other plastics, your Ziploc bags, your yard bags, your plastic bags. I mean, I use the little ones like you do to line the bathroom trash can and to hook over the emergency brake handle in my truck, in my vehicle, so I can throw my coffee cups in. But they still, So, but I look at it as, if people want to do that, then people want to do that. I look at it as a government overreach. And I think that personal preference and to try to encourage the stores to move that way may be the better way to go. Because you're not going to, unless the nation, all agrees, we're not getting rid of these little bags. And I'm not saying anything, we can't keep, you got to do everything that you can do to protect the planet. I mean, in the whole scheme of creation, humans were made to care for the earth. That was part of our job, to be good stewards of the earth. So I'm all for that. But I'm just saying, I think this is kind of a government overreach. But if the town wanted to go vote on it, then let the town vote on it.
And that's all we're saying here. We're not making a decision here. We're just,
I just wanted to chime in.
No, we're just voting. Okay, just to give it to the townspeople and let them vote. And I think it's, for lack of a better term, for me, okay, I'm not speaking for the board. For me, it's responsible to give it to them to vote. Okay, because there's enough emphasis on it, in today's society. And from what I heard, okay, to at least give them the opportunity to bring Georgetown to that level. So,
Well, when I read the title, and it said Board of Health, Town of Georgetown Board of Health, single-use plastic bag ban regulation. I said, this is a Board of Health issue. It's not a Board of Selectmen issue. And so I'm looking at, now this obviously came from your efforts, right?
yes, I've been pushing this.
Well, now, I happened to miss that meeting, but, and I don't know, I was sick that night, and so I didn't see that. I know the bag thing was discussed, but I didn't see it. So, was the pleasure of the board to encourage you to continue moving this forward, or is this just you as a citizen?
It was a discussion that we had, okay, and, based on that discussion, I had, threw some figures out, and it was just something after I got feedback from, again, people, that I spoke with, and then social media, that I felt like it was time for Georgetown to at least have the ability to vote on it. Again, I said to the Board of Health, I just think, rather than 3 people voting on it, have a bigger sample size to represent the town.
Yeah, well, hopefully we can maybe reach out to the community, because I think the current figures are that nearly 30% of the community is senior citizens that may not use social media. More and more do, but so we really only have. Well, you're a senior citizen, yes.
Yeah.
So I would just ask for proper notification to the community so they know.
Proper notification
I'm gonna
in the
talk
meeting.
about that towards the end.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
sure.
All right, then
Okay.
I'll wait till Steve talks.
All right, listen, again, based on time meeting,
Marathon man.
I'm stopping people. I'm trying to push this through. Wage and classification. We do have an update for the board. David, thank you for your efforts, especially, and then we have a couple of FinCom members as well that have put a lot of time so far.
Mike.
And thank you, and then Mike as well. So there's been a lot of effort since our last meeting. To really, kind of start, hammer away at this. I know David and Mike met first because there was some sickness going around for our first meeting. So our FinCom members, nor myself, was present, but they got the ball rolling, which was fantastic. Then we met after. So there's been 2 meetings since our last one, to speak about it. So I would like to mostly give this to Mike and David to give you that update. But
Well, we've agreed on a direction, and based on the input from members of the subcommittee, I was tasked to go back and recalculate certain wages and classification. So I just have to do that task and then come back to the subcommittee for hopefully final approval.
although maybe you could talk to what our accomplishment was in the last meeting, Mike. Because we did, I feel.
You want me to?
Yeah.
Maybe
So what we did was we looked at all of the groups, and based on job responsibilities, as you've seen in the past, that the jobs were grouped together based on the responsibilities and the number of points they accumulated. So we went, and Robin was a fantastic, HR person, really knows her stuff. So we went by each individual group and classification. Like there was group job class A based on position, job class B based on position, and we looked within those classes to make sure that there was no basis for any type of, I wouldn't say total discrimination, but egregious differences, basically, where the town could be exposed if we didn't do something about it. And there was no real male, female, minority, non-minority. There was none of that. It was more based on salary.
Yeah.
Right, Mike? Am I good to this point?
Yeah.
And we went position by position, class by class, and we made some adjustments so that we could bring people, that were way off the mark with comparable experience, comparable job points, and we've come up with some adjustments that need to be done in this period. There's again, to make it so that we're not open to this new law. The new law is a 3-year best efforts also, by the way, giving you 3 years to get all of this straight. And I think the first pass of this would take us for this year, would be good. And then maybe building towards what's our overall strategy to make sure that, the ones that we feel are, that everybody's on the same playing field and being measured the same way within the job classes and the steps, based on some type of measurement. And we were looking more towards the years of service for that. And really, we didn't really come to a total determination on what years of service, for instance, how many years service should you have here or elsewhere in experience, and how we're calculating that to be at the midpoint, right? I mean, is that 8 years? Is it 10 years? How are we getting to 8 years? How are we getting to 10 years? Is it in the same position? Like one of our chiefs has 32 years, right, with the town, but in various positions. Some at patrolman, some at sergeant, some at, So that's not all 32 years as in a chief's position. So how do we measure that, and where does that come out on the scale? So those are the things we're looking at. And we kind of parsed out the contract people, the people that have a contract, and said, look, and FinCom was like, wait, that's not our area. That's a negotiation that the selectmen should do and tell us basically what the number is based on the negotiation, right, Mike? Mm-hmm. So we have some adjustments to bring forth that would put, I'm not going to mention people, It's the positions, and the people in those positions need an adjustment, and we came up with, what, 7 or 8 of them, Mike? Maybe 8, 9, 10?
I'm not even sure it's that many.
Yeah, maybe not that many. Maybe it's under 10.
What, the
With
changes?
adjustments, yeah,
Yeah.
you were there for the adjustments.
Well, if you include the library staff.
Yeah, the library staff.
The lower level
Right.
Positions.
Yeah,
Right.
say 5
Yeah,
to
it's
10.
probably
somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
8 or 9.
8 or 9,
including-
8 or 9 adjustments so that we would not leave ourselves open to any type of
Yeah, they were the glowing changes.
in question. You can see that they were legit,
Yeah.
definitely legitimate.
All right, but now, is the percentage of increase to get them to X or where they belong, is that based on our internal pay structure right
Yes.
now or based on something?
No,
else?
based on our internal pay structure, just to get people even. Wasn't based on the outside.
All right.
Wasn't say, hey, a library clerk over in Hamilton Wenham makes this, so we should have our person. No, this was just within themselves. To get people
Right, okay.
comparable in the same type of position. And there was some, I would say, arguments, but there was some heated debate around positions and, well, how can this position be that when this position, does this? And I'm like, well, you got to understand that this position has 700 or 800, 1,000 people responsible in a building. This one has, carries a gun, but it doesn't have that, the same responsibility, but they all equal the same amount of points, span of control, right? And responsibility. So we got some heated debate around that, but we got through it. And so we've got probably 8, like I said, those adjustments. I think when we finalize it, that would be incumbent about us to come back with FinCom to this board and say, these are the adjustments that we're making, and we'd like you to consider for the budget. We're going to put them in the budget. And then I think the next direction is coming with an overall strategy of compensation in itself. Again, who should be at midpoint and where within their position based on some type of measurement, and we haven't really got that totally nailed down yet, but we're getting closer. Is there a meeting tomorrow night
No.
again?
No, yeah, I don't think it was scheduled.
No, we'll
Because
schedule.
we-
I'm sorry? Total impact.
I'll take a
yeah,
poll when you're available next week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Total impact dollar-wise was not,
It was not dramatic.
no, it wasn't dramatic. On the lower, the lower scale stuff was, I think impact a year was,
Not very.
there was part-times like
Yeah.
$3,000 to $4,000 for the year. It was,
Yeah.
but there was some couple other ones that, I don't know, Mike, you can calculate what the overall number is gonna be, but I can't say off the top of my head it's gonna be more than $20,000, if that.
2025.
Yeah, so it's about 25 grand, so.
And you know what, I have to stress a couple of points to the board, and that is, number one, once again, this is something that, the state is certainly, pushing municipalities to do. All right, so, again, Mike has done a fabulous job, persisting to, get this looked at and whatever else. And again, I think, that committee, did a great job just identifying those people that really needed to get adjusted. But again, then David and Robin, again, we're lucky enough to have 2 people that do this, quite often. And then, again, as Mike noted in the last meeting, along with Mike, we really have, 3 great professionals in that committee that, do this a lot more than, say, myself or Ed did. Myself and Ed were kind of in the background listening, making suggestions. Although Ed was fantastic because Ed's always good to put up the roadblock and say, wait a minute, hold on. And really ask some great
He did a
questions.
good job.
Yeah,
It was very
so he's always good with some great questions and things to look at. So coming together, it was a great discussion. I think we got a lot done, based on what the actual goal was, and that was to immediately address those folks that really needed some shifting.
Mike, when do you think we're gonna, next meeting would be, make that presentation?
Well, I'll see when you're available next week.
Yeah, my times, I'm traveling, so
Oh,
I might be able to do some one next week, and that's it.
yeah.
And I'm traveling, but, then we can make a presentation here for the next meeting,
Yeah, on the
February
26th.
26th, and then you can get it in the budget. And that's, for this year, that's, for the budget, and then we can work on an overall strategy.
Mhm.
Okay.
Good. Okay. Any other questions, comments, Mike, on that?
Oh, somebody just mentioned total compensation. I did contact consulting agency that provided me with the data for the survey data. And they can do total compensation studies. Depends on how many positions you're covering, whether it's non-union or union. And the going rate's about $125 an hour, and the estimate was about 50 hours. So it's, around $6,000 for a total compensation study, if you're so inclined.
Well, maybe we should. I mean, I think we
Well, I don't know.
we'll
We
go
have
with
a
this.
house to tear down next door.
Yeah, I know. We'll go with this process and see how far it takes us, and then, if we come to a point where we say we need somebody else, then I think we're good. But I tell you, Robin's got a wealth of knowledge.
Well, and that's what I was just about to say.
Fantastic.
Robin's, great, at what she does. So I would like to see if we can lean on her, to kind of head this, thing with you, David. So
Yeah.
Okay.
So, the other thing, we're not, as part of the town administrator's report, we had our first budget meeting. I know time is getting late. I can give you like a 10-minute walkthrough of an intro to the budget, because actually at this point in time the budget is still a work in progress. We know the departments know what their budgets are, but the big ticket items are still unknown and won't be really known for a little while. The governor's budget with the state revenue, we're increasing from last year by $55,000. Not a lot. If you wanted to turn to your binder and go to section 3, and the second page in, that's the revenue section. When we do a budget, the first thing we do is calculate what our revenues are going to be. And the first area is the levy limit, and this gives you the 2.5% growth limit plus any new growth. Now, last year we had, and the year before, we had a lot of new growth. That's mostly attributable to Turning Leaf. Last year, all of Turning Leaf came on the books. And we also had a bonus of the Healthy Farms with all the personal property they developed. So new growth is, we're only projecting 160,000, but we're looking at an increase in the levy limit of slightly over 600,000. As I stated, the state revenue, I said 55,000. It's 61,000, but they increased the charges by 5,000. So it's they give you some and they take it away with the other hand. So it's 55,000 is the increase. Now the other big increase, as you can see, motor vehicle excise. We've been running at 1.4 million for the last 2 years, even though I don't mean the last two. Last year we were at 1.4 million. We had only budgeted 1.29. Very confident, and based on half a year's excise collection, we're going to meet 1.4 again this year. So it's, as you can see, it's been steadily increasing. So I feel confident that we can boost that revenue estimate by a couple $100,000.
That's your pickup truck, David. That's your
So the total increase in revenues over last year is,
Oh, my little
at
pickup.
this point, estimated at $839,000.
Just got that too. It's 3250.
One of the the largest expenditures for the town are wages. What's budgeted right now is what the three union contracts and 2% for all non-union. This does not include anything for any adjustments yet. So overall, wages for the town side are looking to increase by 2.98%. And that's, you haven't approved, well, the dispatch are looking at about a 4.5% adjustment, and highway's looking at a 3.5% adjustment based on the contracts.
Right.
The other really big unknown, well, it's becoming more known, but as of last Thursday, I had a conversation with our OPM for the Pembroke project. That project still hasn't closed, and they're in the process of, Joe just signed the last change order tonight, so that'll go to the MSBA audit, and our OPM was not very confident that we wouldn't see the project close until July or later. So we're not gonna be able to go out to bond. We were hoping to go out to bond in May. That's not gonna happen. We probably will go out in July, but that makes interest payments fall in different fiscal years, and it makes it just changes the whole debt structure.
Higher rates too.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking.
Probably slightly higher rates by July. Yeah. So we're doing our best to nail that down.
What did they just change? School's been open for how long? 2 years? Was this something on a punch list change, or?
I don't think it was a punch list, was it?
No, it's just paperwork. They're looking.
It was just an older one that they couldn't find, that he just signed.
Oh.
Just
Oh, yeah.
getting the
It wasn't
paperwork
a new
together. It wasn't
No,
expenditure.
no,
Oh, okay.
no. We,
Yeah.
the last,
The last
everything's-
punch list was a while ago.
yeah, everything.
Wow, I didn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm telling you. It was a while ago.
Yeah.
But they're holding $500,000 of our money,
Well, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
so we're not gonna see it this fiscal year.
That's the other. That's
That's
not
crazy. The school will be
Yeah.
10 years old before the state finally reimburses us.
Exactly. The other big question area is health insurance and all the other insurances, actually. I spoke with Sue Shalou on Thursday, and she has had a conversation with Maya. She told them we're looking for a 0% increase, and they were going to get back to her today or tomorrow. And I think I mentioned, or Sue might have even mentioned, the Maya is estimating, she did tell you guys,
Yeah.
0 to 11%, with 4.5, 4.6 being average. So right now I'm carrying 6.6% in the budget, so hopefully it can only go down.
Yeah, to 0.
Anything south will be a benefit.
Right.
And the only, actually, the finance committee this was one of the first years that the library did not ask for extended hours. And when the library director came to the meeting, she didn't have it in there, and they told her to put it in. So that's going to be a change of service, a potential change of service. And the other potential change of service,
Supposed to be some dropping off.
I've been having discussions with Carol, and we're very close to developing a joint maintenance department.
Some of them go in budget, some don't. That's just.
It would, the town would benefit immensely. We,
So that goes
we'd
back
still
to
have
the
to
budget.
pay out
See?
for parts, but we wouldn't have to, I mean, we won't get the market rate labor, because any labor that gets charged to us is at prevailing wages, which is, probably twice as what the school is gonna charge us for their labor. So, but there's gonna be an increase in the administration budget we haven't developed a number yet, but we'll be able to, they have hired a full-time electrician, and they have 3 full-time maintenance workers, and the plan is to hire a full-time HVAC, which the town would essentially be financing. But we get the use of the other 5 guys too, the supervisor, 3 maintenance workers, and a electrician. So, and we all need HVAC people, especially here in this building and at the public safety building, and plus they need somebody to maintain their brand new school.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Mike, so you're saying that's in their budget, but all? But
no, it would
everybody-
be, it's in our
It's our
budget.
wallet.
And,
Well, I know, I'm
and,
just
and they would, it was, right now, we're paying for half of a janitor in Pearlie to clean the,
Seems-
council on aging.
Yep.
It would be similar. They just invoice us for the cost of, whatever we determine is the appropriate number.
And maintenance people, can I ask?
Hold on,
Doug
hold
for
on.
the news house.
Hold on, Doug's had his hand up. Go ahead, Doug.
So, are we talking about the potential of existing employees losing their positions?
No, that's fine.
No,
If you had a joint,
no,
they would still maintain their,
they're keeping,
Positions.
yeah, and yes, and it's just maintenance. The thing that hung us up before, that was the definition of maintenance. My definition is you come and you do preventative maintenance and you fix things when they break. It's had nothing to do with custodial services, and they wanted to include custodial services. We're happy with our custodial services.
yeah, that's what I was, because when this was talked about before, one of the issues, or one of the possibilities would be to hire an outside company to come in, and maybe some of those people would get jobs.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to make sure it wasn't being talked about.
No, that's not, the custodians, we're hiring one extra body, the school is. It'd be a school employee funded through the town.
Okay, Steve?
That was my question, so I remember reading somewhere for the new school that they recommended just, square footage and all that. I think it was 3 custodians at the minimum.
Mm-hmm.
So is it 2 right now? Well, if they hire somebody, right, it'll be 2 full-time now?
We won't, no,
If the school does, if the school hires.
yeah, we're not, what they do as far as custodians it doesn't affect us.
But this combining of maintenance wouldn't have any impact on that?
No,
Okay.
no. They would still have 3 maintenance workers and an electrician. and the supervisor. They have 5 people right now. We'd be adding a full-time HVAC.
So 6.
But that HVAC person, rather than you calling an HVAC company to come fix something here, we'd get them from the school to come over.
Exactly.
And then they would just bill us for the time.
No, we're paying,
Oh, we're paying for that full.
yeah, well, they would bill us for the parts.
Right. But what about, so if you had electrical issues, you'd call the school and say, hey, send your electrician over?
They'll send the electrician over.
And do we pay for that? Or because we're funding one position, it blankets everything?
It all washes.
Yeah, okay, I got it. All right.
We've actually been doing it this winter.
What a
somewhat.
novel idea, huh? Town employee can come to another building and fix something. Boy, that's cutting edge.
They've been great.
No, that's good. I mean, but good God.
Good.
Taking some of the load off, are they, Janet?
Yes.
So Mike, when you looked at it, as a
Placing balls on a
whole,
ladder.
what is, I'm sure there's a savings.
Yeah, I haven't crunched the numbers.
No.
That's why we haven't come to a final. But yeah, I have to show them, I mean, I have to show ourselves, you know, that it's cost effective way to do things. But, you know, picking up 5 people for the cost of one, that's kind of a no-brainer.
Okay.
That's, yeah, that's all I have on the budget at this point.
Right. All right. So, waiting time. Magical number.
Is it safe, Marathon Man?
I know. I got one more. A special thank you goes out to Country Gardeners, to the Highway Department, for their donation of $11,607.55. To those folks, thank you so much. For your donation. We certainly appreciate it.
You need a vote to accept it.
Motion.
Thank you. Oh, okay.
I made a motion to accept.
Okay.
How much was it?
Motion to accept.
Second.
There we go.
607.
Getting late.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Anybody have anything further to add before we adjourn?
I
Doug,
do.
go ahead.
May, I forget the exact date, but the beginning of May, call it May 1st, will be 1 year that Healthy Farms is open. And 30 days after the anniversary of the 3rd year, the town will receive a minimum of $100,000. We have yet, since they've been open, talked about how to spend that money.
Those ones, yep.
All right. I would just make one suggestion in that we saw police radios, we saw bottles, and we saw helmets.
Yep.
That I would think that the board may want to consider funding those.
The Mike, that money is that in this fiscal year? Do we get that? No?
It is, but it's not budgeted.
Right. Okay.
It would,
When is that payment due?
30 days,
30 days
after
after
the anniversary, which I forget if it's like May 1st or May 8th or something like that. Do you
So-
remember?
Beginning of June, we'll say.
yeah,
Call it, yeah.
We
call
can't.
it.
Can we spend? We can't spend it until it's.
it has to.
No,
be
it's going to a
budgeted.
special account,
Well,
right?
yeah,
A
you-
special account to be
you can
You can
administered by
spend
the
it
board of
anytime we
selectmen.
want.
That's right.
That's right.
Yeah.
We don't need a town meeting vote to spend that money. Good. That's good.
Yeah.
Count
No, but
on
I
it.
agree with you. Absolutely. I was thinking the same thing, but at the same time, I didn't know if we had.
I think we should
the
develop
money.
an SOP on what we should do. Some type of.
Yeah, we really
SOP.
need to.
Work on an SOP that says this is what we should. It's recommended, not required, but recommended. So much goes to capital. So much again, as a roadmap, not cast in stone.
Yeah.
We have a house
Well,
down next door that needs
Right,
to be taken down.
but we really have not discussed this.
Right.
Deliberated as a board over this. It's been over a year.
So yeah, we can certainly. Yeah, it's a good point.
Mr. Chairman, I will
Yes.
not be here for the next meeting. I'll be in Washington, D.C.
What's that, the,
26th.
all right, so what is important then, to ask, I just found out that I will not be here at the next meeting either. So will Doug, Gary, and Steve be here? Okay, so Steve, it's your meeting. Sorry about that, I just found out, the other day. Sorry. Okay, so if nobody has anything further, sorry.
That's all right.
Okay, all right, we got 2 minutes.
Two things.
Packet, right, just
I have
other
two things
information.
to
That was
report from the cable
part of the
advisory
budget book.
/ communications committee. So these things up on the wall that we've seen for a while now.
Yeah.
We're in the process of trying to get some quotes to hook all this stuff up, to get it connected to Cat TV. Downstairs on the second floor, I think we want to put another monitor down there. Cameras, I'm not sure what the whole scope of it is, but we're waiting right now for Janet to get us, not you Janet, sorry, RC to get us a requirements document that says, here's what we need, and then from there, we're gonna meet with vendors. So hopefully we'll get these things all hooked up before then. The other thing that I wanted to tell the board about is during our last meeting, we spoke about this, social media, who's on it, how do we communicate with other people in the town, and what we decided was that we're going to put some questionnaires or surveys in the water or electrical bill, and we're going to ask questions like, for example, what's the best channel to reach you? Is it social media? Is it mail? Is it cable TV? I think we might be surprised, as you alluded to, that there may be a good amount of people that aren't on social media, and that we have to find.
It would depend on your response rate.
Well, we have, and it's not scientific or anything, but I think it's going to be a good step for us to figure out, what's the best way to communicate with people within the town, and what channels do they get all their information from, whether it's the website, whether it's TV, whether it's social media or not. So that's the plan, and we're starting to meet now on a regular basis every month now, and we have a big capital expenditure account. I think it's over $100,000. So we're kind of, brains are starting to turn now, and in terms of how we can use that money to better improve, what the offerings are, and we actually have, I think 3 years from now, we have a contract that's coming up. It's either with Verizon or with Comcast. So I think we have to start the process, Mike. I'm not sure how we do that, but we need to at least send out an email to one of the representatives that says, hey, we would like to start the negotiations for 3 years. But that's what I have for updates from the
Thank you,
people,
Steve.
so, sure.
Thank you, Steve. Anybody else with updates? Nope.
1 minute past.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Let me thank all the members, by the way. I know it's been a long evening. Thank you for hanging in there. I think we all did a great job. So we have a motion. We have a second.
Second.
All right, motion is second. All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
Good night, everybody.